So, hey everyone, Luke here again with Pine Jams to talk about the latest batch of weekly Shonen Jump chapters. Now, just in case anybody's wondering why we're doing it today, I was sick on Sunday and my voice is not back to the best, but it's as good as it will be. So might as well just get it on and get it over with.
Yeah, and so I'm. This is like a pretty big week for Shonen Jump, for the our big series Doctor Stone having its last chapter. So we want to try to get a stream out to discuss that, but we're also planning a dedicated Doctor Stone stream the coming Sunday, and it'll be pretty great to discuss the series as a whole. So if you guys can join us, then it would be fantastic. And then our usual weekly discussions will probably be a different day of the week.
Yeah. And also that stream will have a very special guest. Ooh, I wonder who it could be. It wouldn't possibly be the other big Dr. Stone YouTuber. Hint, hint.
All right, and also I wanted to, in case he doesn't show up, want to give a shout out to Hayes. He actually hit me up on the Project Manga Discord and asked if we were going to stream on Sunday. So I did send him a message saying we are streaming now, but I am glad that our stream is reaching people who are actually interested in listening to our content on a
Oh,
weekly
cool.
basis.
Cool. That's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just get into the chapters right now. So I don't know if you had any preferences of what you want to start with first.
Right. I mean, we usually do the new series first, so might as well. I mean, I think I want to do that and like Black Clover early because that was a
Yeah.
pretty short chapter.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm just sending a message to Charmy's husband for Boyo saying that we've
Yeah,
gone
sure.
live. Yeah, we are live. So yeah, I guess the one that I want to talk about first is Ayashimon for several reasons.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's start with Ayashimon then. Should
Yeah,
make note of the time as always. 2:30 Ayashimon. This is chapter 14. Okay. So go
yeah,
ahead. You want to start with this?
yeah. The reason why is because Sky said, who I don't think is around yet. I'll send him a message as well. But yeah, he posted on Twitter the actual sales numbers for Ayashimon Volume One this week. That what they were, and it's not looking very good. Like,
Yeah, I saw that. For reference, for anybody who's like not following C sales numbers as closely as we are, effectively, Ayashimon in its first week sold about 8,900 volumes, which I know sounds like a fairly big number, but truth be told, like it's pretty small for a major Shonen Jump series. And had this been a gag series, we might have still been in a relatively safe zone. But this is already ranking below some of the like, other gag manga in the magazine, and action series have a much higher standard. I guess to put in perspective, Phantom Seer was selling significantly better. Uh, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I remember that magazine in its first volume was already like 20,000 for the month. Ayashimon will be lucky to get close to 10,000. So that's not good, especially as manga usually, if it struggles early on, it'll struggle to pick up. So it's probably not going to last too much longer, especially with the table of contents placing also being fairly low.
yeah, and also as well to give it perspective, higher blazing boy. Yeah, to give a perspective, it's actually by a veteran author as well.
Yeah, which usually is a good thing. It's a bit of a saving grace, but in this case, even major veteran authors like Kishimoto, his new series didn't last more than 40 issues. So this one, I don't know. We'll have to keep a very close eye on things. Hey,
Yeah, we
Blazing
will.
Boy, glad you jumped on.
Yeah, and
And then
also
let
as
us know
well,
what series you'd like us to talk about. Also, since you happen to be the first one to start commenting.
yeah, but of course you'll know what. Of course we know which one you want us to talk about, and we will be talking about Black Clover soon as well. So if you want us to do that after Ayashimon, we could do that.
Yep, definitely. But let's start with Ayashimon then, because who knows how much longer we'll have it.
Yeah. So anyway, chapter starts off uh with um
More, yeah.
Maru basically being completely obliterated by Koton, as he was from the super speed that Koton has, and he's just on the floor, just out of breath. It's like the manga inside of me rushing through my body, pulsing, pounding, hypes me up. It's like, okay, but more, um, Maru, that's not how manga works.
Yeah, I mean, it's somehow going to make itself work. That's the kind of story this is. And Blazing, but we again, we usually save it, Dr. Stone for the very end. Since we're doing the stream a little earlier in the day, I hopefully you'll have the time to come back to it, and we can always like message you when we get to it. But this is a like the final chapter, so we're going to be spending a good amount of time on it.
Yeah, yeah, we will.
And as we said in the beginning of the stream, since you weren't here, we're going to do a dedicated Dr. Stone stream on Sunday. So definitely show up for that because we know you like Dr. Stones.
Yeah, and we're
It's like
doing it. And we're doing it with a special guest as well. I think you know who we're talking about when we say that.
yeah, you might. Anyway, so then Maru he starts hearing voices, and specifically the voices are coming from his back. I think it was you mentioned something about the tattoo coming into play in this fight.
Yeah, I did. I did. I was like, yeah, they made a big deal about him getting the tattoo, and I was like, okay, that is going to come into play at some point in this fight, because why else would they make it? I mean, it was a big moment, so it was like getting Uru um, establishing her group together, but also as well, it had to have some other significance.
Well, it turns out you're right because apparently it can be used as a communication thing, which is kind of nice because now every time we see the characters shouting at each other, we know they're just communicating through the tattoos.
Yeah, yeah. So Uru's speaking to him through the tattoo, and she's saying the ring is a one-on-one. The ring in a one-on-one is sometimes so big it can be so easy to lose sight of the clash, telepathically following you as your second is fine, I think. And yeah, and Maru brings up a good point here. You think isn't it against the rules? Like technically, yes, it should be.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of reminds me of the tournament arc from Doctor Stone, which I've been rewatching some old Doctor Stone stuff for our big stream coming up. But it's kind of funny how even then, sometimes in manga, like our characters will break the rules, but we go, it's fine. They're the protagonists; they can bend the rules a little.
Yeah,
Kind
I
of
guess so.
minorities.
I guess so. But one thing that was actually quite interesting about this chapter, which I was like, okay, that's something a bit different, is how they explain. Sorry, how they explain how Colton actually works. It in the fact that he's the fastest yokai, and think of him as living projectile. Following his moves by sight is nearly impossible because his body is actually just non-existent. It's like he's like a form with cloth wrapped around him, and his head. I assume his head is just a head underneath the helmet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'll want to talk about this cloth form again in a different manga we're going to discuss later. But yeah, it is pretty cool how they explained it. And, again, it's just tying all the yokai abilities being very unique to their ancestry, which, that's the other thing. I honestly thought this series would be really popular in Japan because they're using like real life yokai, to my understanding. And for us, it's just like another monster of the week. But for them, it's like part of their culture. So I figured it would be a bigger hit.
I guess because it is a monster of the week, I guess they're not really into that anymore in Japan.
You think it's kind of played out maybe by now?
I think it has been,
Yeah, that could make sense.
or I
But
think, or I
well, yeah, we
think,
don't know for sure, obviously.
or I think it's because of the fact that it's going up against Duran Duran, and I feel like people are liking that more because it's more traditional shonen as opposed to Ayashimon.
That is a good point because I've had discussions, like actually on the Project Manga server, about how I'm enjoying the series, but like others, like they really feel like it's almost too traditional and it hasn't stood out. and some people like don't really want another traditional series just because it doesn't really do much new for this like major magazine. But I think from a business standpoint, these things sell, so it kind of just works. And I think it's okay to have one or two like very old school kind of manga.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, moving on with the chapter, we have Maru basically talking to himself, as Kotan puts it, because obviously he's the only one that can hear through the tattoo, and Kotan's like, "Oh, you're getting so cocky talking to yourself," as he goes to attack attack Maru, and Maru goes to attack him, but Uru's basically like, "No, you idiot! Weren't you listening? He's too fast for you to catch him by going head on. Or you're just going to get yourself attacked again." And at first, it does seem like that, but actually, Maru, for all his dumb moments, actually did have an idea in place, and he winds up jumping up in the air and catching Koton by the two flails that are on the back of his helmet. So yeah, for all his dumb moments, that was actually a pretty smart move.
Yeah, it was very unexpected. But we kind of get a little more into like how he made a clear-headed decision just because he has been talking to Ura, and so because of that he's still excited to fight, but he's also thinking about what he needs to do. So that's kind of nice that in a way she kind of grounds him. And
Yeah,
Blazing Boy, I just want to address your comments. So I, as far as I understand, you're like probably one of the only people in like in our community who really enjoyed Earthchild. I mean, I'm still reading it myself. It's not bad, but I haven't quite been won over. But all the other new series aren't working for you, like Ayashimon, Duran, P6,
what
and all
about
that. I'm assuming.
what about Akane? Like, aren't you enjoying Akane, Blazing Boy?
Well, yeah, let us know that too. But anyway, so then Kotan's big plan is okay. I'm just gonna like keep running and just like have Maru like lose his grip. Of course, he keeps holding on with the whole like speech of I'm not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting for the whole game, so I can clear my head and go for the win. So I honestly thought that was gonna be like the shot because it literally looks like he shot or he punched the engine heart. Like it literally looks like it's going in, but that's not what happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just reading his comment, Blazing Boy. Akane is good, yes, but I'm talking about the fire manga specifically.
Oh, gotcha. All
Okay.
right, yeah, I can see that. I mean, the new chapter of Don Da Don, like that is some like amazing action choreography. So I kind of get what you mean. I do kind of get that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so I think there are still like some good fighting manga like out there, even among the newer ones. But maybe these ones don't work for you. That's fair. Um, but anyway, yeah. So Maru like basically punched Kotan, and it looked like it's right through his chest, which was like his only vulnerable point. But I thought this was pretty clever that Kotan, because of his extreme flexibility, is just able to like kind of rearrange himself because he's just a giant cloth. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So because Maru, he's really strong, but he wasn't fast enough to punch out his heart. And then as such, he's able to just like reconfigure himself and tie Maru up and then drag him along once again.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting as well. And I love the panel on page 11 where that's like traditional, like comedic panel where it's moving so fast that the eyeballs just get sucked back.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Although I will say, I do like the minimalist style of this manga, but like on page 11, those speed lines to kind of just show Kotan going like super fast everywhere. I don't think that one works as well. Just because
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of like, it's literally gray boxes with lines. I mean, if you're a manga fan for a long time, you kind of know what's going on, but I feel like otherwise it's just kind of like, it doesn't really work very well in this particular case. But
yeah.
then the page after that looks gorgeous.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like it makes up for it in the next panel on page 13, page
Oh
12.
yeah, I mean the building isn't too complex, but it just you can tell the sheer scope of the height and the moon in the background.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, why man, if you're up there, help them out.
Man. Well, to be fair, Y-Man's help would be initiating immortality. That's
Yeah,
not going to help,
yeah.
especially because the Ayashimon won't be affected.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
good point. So anyway,
so basically, the weird thing is though, like this fight was like so fast, which is good, but it's so fast. I actually had to go back a couple pages to realize that Catan had Maru tied up, and that is why he's able to like let go of him and then cause him to fall down. That being said, I don't think this fall is going to kill anybody because this guy has like he got cars thrown on him and just like the worst pummelings, and he survived. There's no way this drop is going to end him. So I don't know. I don't think the tension really worked so much as it's more like Maru's like, oh man, how am I going to beat him? Because he's not in danger.
yeah, yeah. And then after that we go over to Ten's fight, where it seems like oh, what was his name again? Waku. There we go. Has beaten him, and he's like, "Ah, I'm dead." Skull split anywhere, but actually, it turns out Waku hit him so hard that his head turned into like a wheel, basically. So like his head is spinning round his back, underneath his crotch, up to his chest, back up his head, and it's doing it like a million miles per hour. And I was like, how does that work? How do those physics work?
Yeah, they're Ayashimon. They can just do what they want. It's like one of the creative things about this series. You can kind of just do whatever they want with them physically. Remember when Dopo just like made them into art exhibits? That was
Oh
messed
yeah,
up,
good
but you can
point.
stretch these bodies however they want. And Blazing Boy, yes, I'm also reading Magi Lumiere. I think you actually got me into it. And yeah, I will say the concept of the manga is really interesting, and what's keeping me there because I love techno magic. But I do have to say it's still in the early stages where I'm not too like I don't know, story wise I'm kind of invested because it's kind of like following a startup business. But at the same time, I think like the fights themselves, like you said, aren't super great because even in the last chapter, like I kind of just accepted that their tactics work so much as like because they kind of try to make it make sense. But a lot of it, man, I've really thought about it, doesn't completely make sense. But it's fine, it's magic, so I kind of excuse a lot of it.
Oh,
But anyway, back to this chapter. Oh yeah, and Luke, Maggie Lumiere. Basically, it's a story about a world with magical girls, but in this case, magical girls is kind of like a part of the industry. So it's like a whole
okay.
business. We follow a startup business trying to make it up in the big leagues. So it's kind of interesting. It's like a story about capitalism in some ways, but also a magical girl story.
Okay. Oh, you know who would love that type of manga?
Who?
Ryusui.
Oh yeah, probably. I
Yeah,
mean, I kind of like how like there's all these business mangas like that and Trillion Game coming out right now. So I think it's just a popular subgenre.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, moving back to the fight, we have Waku saying, "Oh, that was just a little low. Anything I hit with my fist starts spinning like a wheel. That is the power of Wahoo Do. I call it the hellish go around." And yeah, 10, I agree, that was a lame name. What is even the point? Yeah. But then it's actually a way to get 10 sort of like passing out and being dizzy to the point that he pukes, leaving him vulnerable to a kick from Waku. And this gets all the Ayashimons around them saying like, "Oh yeah, go for it, yes sir." And he's like, "You're nothing like my team. Look at them, and you won't find anything tougher in the whole alliance. I'm gonna toughen you kids up. I'll work over. I'll work you over till you die." Okay, how are you gonna toughen them up, but end up killing them in the same field as well? Like, kind of a bit contradictory there.
Well, not for Ayashimon because they come back to life. So in a way, like beating them to death is a way of strengthening them up.
But then if you beat them
Um,
to death, then doesn't their powers reset?
I we don't technically know if that's true. As far as we know, they carry their experiences with them.
Huh.
But I don't know 100% if that's true or not because we really didn't get into the mechanics of the reincarnation. And Hayes, yeah, hi. I did give you a shout out actually early in the stream, just thanking you for reaching out to us for the last missing stream on Sunday. Blazing Boy, I'm not sure if I've heard of Taco Piss. Have you talked about that on Discord? Because I don't think I remember that particular series. But anyway, yeah, I do like this moment with Ten here because like he's about to like go back to his old habits of okay, I can't fight. I'm going to just get out of this by like getting on my knees and begging. But then Waku immediately starts like uh, let's see, insulting Urara and saying, "Oh man, I thought she'd be a big deal because was the old boss's daughter, but it turns out if people like you are following her and that Maru kid, she's not going to be worth all that much." And that's kind of interesting because so far we only have Kotan, who has a lot of respect for her, but only as like the daughter of Kyo. But in many ways, like since Urara is unknown to the Ayashimon underworld, as she doesn't have any sort of status or respect. So Ten's actions and Maru's actions reflect on her a lot. And then immediately Ten is like, okay, you know what? I take it back. I'm not bowing down to you. It's okay if you make fun of me. It is kind of a cliche shonen moment, but I love these kind of moments, especially for Ten, who's been kind of cowering around this whole time so far. He's saying you can make fun of me and I deserve it, but Big Sis and Big Bro don't deserve that. And I like his line of Big Bro isn't just any lunatic. His lunacy is on a whole other league. It's very true. That is very true.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it looks like Ten's about to pull off his mask, which I think is the like equivalence of using full power or something for these guys. I just don't know what he's going to do exactly.
Yeah. I guess it's like the hollow mask in Bleach, but in reverse.
Yeah, I mean that's how the Ayashimon seem to do. They pull off their mask when they want to go all out. And hey, Ann Arbor, nice to see you.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. Hey Ace, hey Ann Arbor. Sorry if my voice is a little bit groggy again. Just gonna have to pull with it. But anyway, and 10 closed out the chapter saying, I am extremely a proud member of the Uro gang. Now the question here is, what is 10's actual power? I mean, we know he can move through walls, but does it mean like he can do basically what Ban does in Mission Yotsuko family? Like he can move through anything.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Mirio because that's the example I knew. But yeah, I have a feeling somehow he's going to use that power because as we saw with Mirio, if you can use your, and actually even wait, what was his name? I was saying Toby, but his real name is Obito. Yeah, Obito is like his ability to like just move through stuff. Like you can, those are usually like some of the strongest characters in their respective verses. So I feel like 10 has got to have a huge power up moment once you realize he can just move through a lot of stuff.
Oh my god, I've just realized something.
What's
he's
up?
gonna be the Senetsu of Ayashimon.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna be great.
So yeah,
because I think Zenitsu is like way more like hard to like. I mean, I still like him, but Zenitsu can come off as like really too much. But 10, he just comes off as goofy and fun. And also, I don't blame him for being scared because these guys are literal murderers. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, also, Blazing Boy, I knew there was some shady with your voice, Luke. Yeah, it's because I've been sick over the weekend. That's why the stream's been a bit delayed. I mean, I'm feeling a lot better in terms of the fact that I'm not hot anymore. I'm not burning up, but my voice is not back to the way it was yet. But hopefully, it's not too distracting.
Okay, and that's Ayashimon. Did you have anything more to add?
Not really, no. So I guess for now we'll just leave. I guess we'll just go talk about Black Clover before we get into any of the other series.
Yeah, well, since we do have a couple people here, hey guys, what series do you want us to talk about next? So far, we only talked about Ayashimon. So if you're just jumping in, that's the only series you kind of missed out on. And the only things you probably missed is that it's not looking good in terms of the sales for this series continuation. So we'll see how that plays out. But if no one has any suggestions, yeah, we could either do Duran Duran or Black Clover. Maybe we'll just do Black Clover because I did want to do that one early.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing anything yet. I guess we can just pull out Black Clover for now, and
Yeah.
then we'll
And if you
take your
could,
suggestions after.
yeah, if you could talk about it quickly while I go and get a drink.
Oh yeah, not a problem.
All right.
Okay, so I'm just gonna make a note. This is gonna be Black Clover 325, and Luke's gonna be out for a bit, but I'll start off the discussion because honestly, this is like a pretty short chapter. And short chapters always make me a little worried for Tabitha because whenever it's a short chapter, he usually leaves some kind of comment that's like, "Oh man, I've just been not in a good place," and then it makes me scared. But in this case, all the comments are about Dr. Stone's last chapter, so who knows? But it could just be he's saving his energy for like the big final moment to this huge climactic fight. So who knows? And okay, so Black Clover. We start off with Yami calling out to everyone, saying it's like, "Okay, guys, it's go time." Then we move on to Lucifero basically just destroying everyone's spells because, of course, he does. He can literally just tear apart the child's playground. But either way, nobody's like all that scared. They're still just going in all forward. And Asta's like, okay, well, we need to start up Devil Union. Apparently, they only have 2 minutes left. I'm having trouble keeping track of Asta's like time limits with these things, but yeah, apparently he only has like 2 minutes left. And they bring up Lichto one more time because this is a whole fight to avenge her in part. Once Asta gets his Devil Union up, and Nock brings up a good point, and I think this is like a good point that I'll be bringing up near the end of the chapter as well, that he can't really back up Asta while he has like his anti-magic on because anti-magic will literally cancel out his magic. So it is kind of an interesting thing where Asta, like a lot of people want to help him out, but with his Devil Union, like literally being like a manifestation of his anti-magic, they can't really do too much near him. So pretty interesting ability.
Yeah, and I'm back now. Yeah, I was just gonna say that's very interesting. How, like, yeah, because that should be something that's established. Like, you can't concentrate on different magics at the same time.
Yep. And then the next page, this is something that I missed that actually I think it was One Smart on our Discord pointed out to me. Thank you. But I can see it a lot more clearly after he pointed out. There's a lot of teleportation going on in this chapter, and it was kind of hard to follow. But like if you actually look, you can see Asta using his slash on what looks like in the very back Lucifero. But then we see Lucifero right in front of him. So that was supposed to show he's moving insanely quickly. Probably just teleporting.
Yeah.
Because like at first I was just like, wait, where's Asta hitting? And then like Lucifero being like, you're the most dangerous one, but the easiest to kill. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, but also where did you come from? So this chapter was like cool, but very hard to follow.
Yeah,
and I think Blazing Boy was talking about how he even agrees with that one.
Yeah, and I was like, Blazing Boy, criticizing a Black Clover chapter as the world come to an end.
Yeah, but Lucifero brings up a good point. Asta is like very much like an interesting glass cannon where he could easily take out Asta, but at the same time, Asta's power is the biggest threat to him. So it makes sense for like everyone else to protect him, which is exactly what Yami does. But also apparently this is like a concept most of the other people don't get, as I'll talk about near the end of the chapter.
Okay, yeah, and fun and interesting thing here is that the sword that Yami created from William's powers isn't working as well as it was before.
Yeah, because I guess Lucifero is now using more magic, and in Shonen, using more of your power means your defenses, speed, and strength are all up.
I thought the way I was thinking it was like once Lucifero gets acquainted to an ability, he becomes less vulnerable to it or something like that.
Oh, that's interesting. he can like adapt.
Yeah,
That's an interesting thought.
sort of like asking from Bleach how his ability, like whenever he came in contact with it, like, oh, I know about it now. Now it won't affect me.
Interesting.
No, no,
And
not asking. Yuha, that was it. Which
oh,
makes
okay.
which makes sense given now Yuha was the god of the Quincy's and Lucifer was the god of the devils.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting parallel. And Ann Arbor, yeah, I haven't played Elden Ring myself, but yeah, I've heard it's tough. But I've also heard it's pretty good for newcomers to the series because of the way they structured the game, which is interesting enough. I don't
Yeah,
plan on playing it myself, though.
I'm debating whether or not to play it, but at least now we have an explanation why the last two Game of Thrones books haven't been released yet.
Uh, but anyway, Yami basically is about to get his arm destroyed, and then teleports him, which again, like, was very hard for me to tell based on just like the panels on page 7, because like you see, he did something with his crystals, and to be fair, at this point, I kind of figured it was something like teleportation because I know his stars like help him move around, but it's still just like the way it's depicted and everyone being so tiny. It's kind of just hard to make that out. But at the same time, Yami helps clarify, oh, hey, you have 2 Grimjoes. Grimoires. Thanks for saving me, handsome dude. So that just clarified that it was who used his magic to save Yami. So
Yeah,
luckily that was clarified with the dialogue.
yeah.
After that, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say what you were gonna say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so next, yeah, we basically not pointing out that Yami and Asta are the only ones who can take down Lucifero, but I would point out that Yami can't do all that much now because of like Luke said, he might have adapted to William's sword, in which case they should definitely focus on helping out Asta. I'm just saying, he has like literal anti-magic. So, and Yami, like he says, only has one arm. And it's true that they can't back up magic. Again, brings this up and his wounds aren't fully healed. But at the same time, I think it's pretty clear that Asta is the best bet. Besides, of course, that we know he's the main character. He's also the one with the most effective magic and the biggest time limit. So they need to they have a very short window of time to take down Lucifero. So I don't know. I think it just makes sense to focus on Asta. And I don't know why the other characters haven't picked up on this.
Yeah. Also, Ann Arbor, Askin was immune to all abilities of some time. Okay, so it was Askin that I was thinking of. Yeah. What did you guys say about Black Clover? I just said that you were criticizing because you were saying something a bit critical about Black Clover.
Yeah, and what I was saying was, yeah, the teleportation was kind of tough, but then once one smart pointed out to me on Discord, it was easier to follow what was going on with the action. And the other thing I just mentioned is that it seemed obvious to me that they need to focus on Asta, but for some reason that they're making it like, is it Yami or Asta? Which one should we help? Because Yami is also backing up Asta, as we saw on page 6, so he knows what he's doing. But for some reason, Nox and are like, but who should we help? We're like, guys, come on. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then that happens, and then we also see in the corner, I forgot his name. Okay,
the
that
mini
other
devil.
devil. Yeah, like the other devil who came in with Lucifero. You guys feel free to point out his name for us. Like he's just sitting in the corner, and I remember when I was watching Eagle from Project Manga do his reaction, someone in chat said, oh, maybe this devil will end up joining our side and help us out. But I'm thinking, but why would he do that? Unless there's going to be a falling out, I don't see that happening. If anything, I see like it more him just being the reason why this fight won't be like it won't finish the way we expect. But I don't think it's going to be him helping us out necessarily. Him like, I decided to help the humans. Oh, thank you, Blazing Boy Aldramelch.
Aldramelch. Okay. Yeah. What is his deal? We need to know.
Yeah, he has to play a part because they're reminding us that he's there, which means Tabitha wants us to remember, hey, don't forget this guy's here. So that's going to be important somehow. And then not Yami, Noct is about to have his arm like destroyed or crushed, I guess, with gravity force, and then Asta erases that magic with his anti-magic. And again, well, one, that looks super brutal. I love the artwork. But two, it also points out that again, Asta is their best bet because his magic is the most effective against Lucifero. So they really need to focus on Asta, getting Asta
Yeah,
down.
especially on the next page where Lucifero kicks Asta's leg. Well, not his leg, more like his kneecap, and it looks like that's being crushed.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people point in the comments for Viz and Manga Plus Asta's leg is going to be hurting in the morning.
Yeah, everyone's going to be hurting in the morning after this fight, whenever it
Yeah.
ends.
And then really cool paneling on Yuno's entry right here, which again is another teleportation moment. At least that one I think was the most clear one yet in the chapter. But then when Yuno says the one with Captain Vanjin's sword, I'm betting on him. I'm just like, come on, Yuno. Come on. But also I understand his thinking. But at the same time, I think this is putting more flags on Yami. Because I'm still not over that just yet.
On Yami dying.
Yeah, it's still a possibility.
Yeah. Like I think we've been saying that for like the past 10 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's also just weird because this Black Clover fights don't usually last this many weeks. So that's partially why we've been taking it for this long. But then Ann Arbor Audra has such a great speech bubble design. Okay, I'll take your word for it because I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that's from Elden Ring. And Blazing Boy, they back up Yami because Asta is not as fast as Yami, and Yami has been healed. Asta hasn't. That's why I think they betted on Yami. And that is true. Did bring up the point that Asta is way more injured, but it's also like I think Asta is the one who can give the finishing blow while Yami can't. So I feel like even then Yami's like their best supporting role, but Asta has to be the one to like take him down. Not just because he's the main character, but because logically he's the only one who can really deal damage. Like they established this.
Yeah. But that surprisingly is the end of this has to be one of the shortest Black Clover chapters ever.
No, I wouldn't say that because there's been 11 page chapters before. It just feels extra short because it was just this one big fight. And yeah, as a good point, Ann Arbor, and I have heard people say that if Asta uses Vanjin's sword, and in a weird way, maybe that's the foreshadowing because does say the one with Captain Vanjin's sword, I'm betting on him. He didn't actually even say Yami's name. And if the translator did that on purpose, it could be that Asta is the one who's going to get Vanjin's sword, and then Yuno's going to back him up. But of course, in the case of Lucifero, he's just like, yeah, I don't care which way you come at me, I'm going to destroy you. But, we'll see how that works out for him.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If Yuno's going to back him up, they'll have to heal Yuno up because if you see on the last page, Lucifero punches him and he's like shouting away.
No, I think he shattered away his sword.
Oh, okay.
Because you
but
see
then,
on page
then
10,
why?
Then...
But then why are bits and pieces from his back sort of like flying off?
Are they? I thought they're just pieces from his sword flying back, but I don't. Wait, hang on. Because you mean his wings? Yeah, I see on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did hit him pretty hard, so yeah, it could be. I mean, is definitely in a bad position too, but yeah, this is definitely a huge fight because everybody's on their last legs.
Yeah, so my question is, how long can this fight actually keep going on for?
It's a good question. Now, the thing is, I could see it honestly, like almost finishing up either next week or the week after, but this chapter is also very short, so I'm not sure if we're going to have more short chapters like this, which could potentially extend it.
Possibly, but yeah, that was pretty much everything I had to say on Black Clover.
Me too. It was a decent chapter, but not one of my favorites for this particular fight, just because it was a little harder to follow. But it is chapters like this that make me really wish we had more anime, which we might get down the line.
We might get, we just never know. But yeah, this fight I would actually like to see animated when it's fully done. See how long it actually is.
Yeah. So we have a couple more stuff. Again, guys, feel free to suggest any chapters you have in mind. And if you don't, I think we can either do Dron Dron or Akane. We're talking Akane, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yep. I'll give you a little time for that. In the meantime, I'm just going to write down. Let's see. One Piece had a fight over 20 plus chapters with two battling, just staring at each other. Well, I don't know much about One Piece's
Oh
pacing, but
yeah,
I think at
yeah.
least we're in reference to Black Clover's fights. This is very much longer. And okay, Blazing Boy suggested Akane. I think that's a
Okay.
good choice.
We're doing Akane then. Right. So Akane. So I guess we've been introduced to the main rival of the series.
Yeah, which honestly I was not expecting, but he's an interesting rival to say the least.
Yeah. I was like when he first showed up, I was like, okay, who let Keisuke Urahara into this series? I don't know
Yeah,
why. I don't know why that came to me, but maybe it's just because of the way he dresses and his hair. It kind of reminded me of Urahara.
yeah, no, I can see that. I can definitely see that. But we learned that this guy, he is the one who is supposed to be performing, um, like the person who Kane is substituted in for. Because he's talked about, oh man, my transportation got me delayed and then it's kept the audience waiting. He's actually pretty upset at that. But at the same time, he also, like, I guess a good learning point for him is to just not skimp out on transportation costs, I guess.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he walks in, I guess he figured either everyone's going to be frustrated waiting for him, but instead he sees an audience that are clapping and cheering at the end, which is actually kind of interesting because I guess he came at the tail end of the performance, but that kind of confuses me on some of the other stuff he says. So maybe it wasn't the very end of the performance, but just like in the middle of it.
Maybe.
Uh,
Maybe.
oh, Discord is down? Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wait.
Thanks for letting us know, Blazing Boy.
Oh, is it?
I
Let
don't know. I
me.
have it open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's down. It's down.
Yep. Okay. Well, all right. I guess if we need to exchange anything, we'll just use it through Twitter or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's
And
see. So then
uh,
Akane is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna comment, Hayes. Yeah, Akane had a great chapter. Yeah, I'm loving this series.
Yep. Same. I mean, this series has been like basically every chapter has been really solid, and unlike some I think other like of the newer series, like even Piece 6 and Earthchild. Like, actually, I would even almost say the early chapters of Duran Duran. Like a lot of those early chapters, up until the point, it didn't fully win me over till like later, except for Earthchild, which is still in the process of trying to win me over. Um, but Akane, like since chapter one, has just been solid. So of all the series, besides Ayashimon Duran Duran, that you're already like really hooked me, I'm hoping that Akane survives. P6, I'm not
Yeah,
worried about. I think it's been doing very well. I don't know about its manga sales. I haven't kept track of it, but it's been ranking well.
yeah. Apparently, P6 is doing well from what I've
Yeah,
seen.
which is good. I'm glad the story's really picking up more and more, like every arc. So anyway, Akane is like exhausted from the performance. Maybe you can comment more about that, Luke,
Oh
about the
yeah.
exhaustion.
Well, it's sorry, excuse me. It's more to do with the fact of like, yeah, you do get exhausted after that, but it's more of the fact like, okay, it's not because I don't know. Did she have any lights around her or something like that? Spotlights on her?
I think so, but then again, it's hard to tell from the panel from this chapter.
Yeah, yeah. Because if that's the case, then that makes sense because it's more to do with like the lights and the technical aspects that are around you when you're on stage and you're in like a costume as well. So it's the costume combined with like the space and the lights on you that just heats you up, which makes you more exhausted than what you should be. But also as well, just the fact that you're giving everything into a performance that can wear you out as well.
Yeah, in her case, she was doing it solo, like he says. Garu, I believe his name is.
Yeah,
Some of that. He says like you've been talking for 20 minutes straight, so it's a solo performance, so that's probably even more exhausting. And Blazing Boy, I will let you know with P6, the early chapters, like I said, are a little hard to get into, and it's a music manga, and of course you can't hear manga, so it does take a bit in order to like win you over, especially with the rough art style outline. Because this is definitely like a very amateur mangaka like working on it. You can kind of tell from the beginning, but they do improve. And I think once you get into like the first like big arc after all like the beginning school stuff that they have to do in manga, then you like the first time you get to like meet a sibling, then you start getting into the story proper. Then it gets good from there. So give it like, I don't know, 10, 12 chapters if you're starting to get bored. But anyway, continuing onward, Kane is like really hyped up on herself. I remember originally we thought this was going to be like the performance that humbles her, but like even by the end, it's not really what happened.
no, no.
She's like ready to go out and perform again.
Yeah, and it's like, okay. Like what he says, don't get ahead of yourself. Like, okay, it's one performance, but let's just take it one step at a time.
Yep. And then like we get our rival character coming in and him literally like just straight up hugging this random high schooler he's
Yeah,
never been, which now that I'm thinking about it is kind of really weird. But yeah, she just starts complimenting on all her stuff and all the things he saw from her performance. But then Akane's like, dude, let go of me. This is really weird. And then yeah, and he honestly doesn't come off like too much as a jerk to me. I think the series wants us to like that's a weird thing with this series. Like a lot of like the male Rakugo rival characters, like Garu, and now this guy. Let's see, what was his
what was his
name?
name?
I know they say it at some point, obviously.
It's later in the chapter, I think they say. Um,
Is it that much? Oh yeah,
Kaisi,
Kaisi.
Kaisi, Kaisi.
Okay, yeah. So with all of this male Rakugo, they try to like make them seem like, oh man, aren't these guys just the worst? But I'm like, not really. They're a little eccentric, slightly, but even by manga standards, they're pretty nice people altogether.
Hmm.
And this guy's a little full of himself, of course, like most rivals. He literally says, if there's a way I can thank you for what you did for me, oh, I know, I'll let you watch my solo performance for free. And I'm like, okay, wait, dude, that's not really a reward. She's literally here. Everyone's
Yeah,
watching. Like, why wouldn't she be able to watch for free? She's
she's
here.
backstage as well.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. Like, that's the one line I will say. It's like, okay, that was a bit like jerkish, but
Well,
I
to
am.
well, I think it was just him being a bit condescending as well, considering he says literally in the next panel, consider it a lesson from stage left.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think it's like that much like that bad, because it's not like he's like, oh, I'm so much like you're like horrible at this, but I'm the best. He's more just like, hey, you did awesome, but take a lesson from a senpai right now. And I think that's fair, honestly. I think this is more him actually wanting to teach her some tricks, like because he sees promise in her, as we learn later.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
don't think he's really a bad guy. Like the only real bad guy so far is that like old grouchy man who we'll talk about at the end.
yes, definitely. So then we have Gaku saying, "No, this is worth watching because he became a he became a Futsuma, a second rank after only his second year of apprenticeship at 19 years old, and he's turning heads everywhere. He might seem a bit obnoxious, but his Rakugo has a certain allure to it, and this is where we actually get into what his Rakugo is, where he becomes a totally different person on stage, which makes perfect sense because that's basically what it's like to be on stage, like as a performer, actor. It's like, oh, you may be this eccentric, happy, cheery person on the outside, but when you get into performance space, you can sometimes become the most intimidating person out there.
Yeah, I think you did bring that up before. And I think what I find kind of weird is that, like, he's giving his whole introduction. I think there was a name for this, but I forgot what it is. It was from chapter one. But Akane is literally like saying, it's like, oh man, I can't believe he said I was cute and talented. He's totally lying. And I'm like, why do you think he's lying? There's no reason for you to think that. But at the same time, he gets into his performance. And I don't know if the transition was super smooth, but maybe it worked better in Japanese. I don't know. He just starts off this story about like a man trying to like get a lesson in music. I think, wait,
Yeah.
no, I think no,
A
oh, yeah,
man with no looks or money wants to attract attention from women.
yeah, and then trying to get lessons from a singing teacher. Yep, uh, and then as we learn, apparently, Psyche's like big talent is the fact that he's very good at playing alluring characters. That's like his big shtick. Which I guess, okay, I guess I kind of understand why that would be like an appealing characteristic in a performer, because he already has the looks, so then he just needs the performance, and it works for him very well. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I don't know. When I was on page 10, and I'm kind of skipping past the story because none of the stories are usually that important, because it's just like singing lessons. But when on page 10, when we were seeing that expression that apparently got everyone's attention, I'm just like, is that supposed to be attractive? It still looks goofy to me.
Oh, you mean like? Do you mean like the panel where it's like the wave of aura around him?
Yeah, and he's just smiling and trying to
All right.
act cute. Yeah, that didn't seem like, oh my god, he's so attractive. That was just like, that just looks that looks silly. Like if this was a
Yeah.
comedy performance, I'd be like, yeah, this is working very well. But apparently this is supposed to be, oh my god, his singing's so amazing and he's doing such a good job playing a female character. And I'm like, all right then, I'll take your word for it. And Blazing Boy, yeah, okay, cool, fair enough. I guess if you can use your imagination for performing stuff, you might be able to. But I feel like Luke said, it's almost easier here with the character expressions to kind of imagine the voices they're playing as they're doing performances, because in manga we're kind of used to putting in our own voices for characters. But with music, unless of course you're familiar with the musical pieces and stuff and can read notes, I think it's a little harder to figure out what they're playing. But yeah, still give it a shot. I still recommend giving it a shot. Let's see. Back to the chapter.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh yeah. So then he still just like talking. Akane's talking about his musical talent, and then what's funny is, like, again on page 10, I think Seiki is really good, or sorry, Kaisei. I've been calling him Seiki. Kaisei is really good at making these goofy expressions more than his like attractive ones. But I do understand the idea of, okay, he's so good at playing an attractive character that as soon as he breaks that character, the comedic characters come off as even stronger. That concept actually made sense to me. So I also
Yeah.
understand pick this particular story to go with it. But also, I feel like his talent is like very narrow in scope, where it's like, okay, he could probably play certain stories really well, but there's probably a lot of other stories he almost couldn't play as well. Just because a lot of the Rakugo stories we've seen so far have been about like just adult men, Japanese men, just chatting away about something. So in his case, he would always need to play at least a character that's like attractive to some degree.
Yeah.
I would
So yeah. So imagine if it was like a character who was like extremely ugly.
Yeah, like even if he could play that, he would need like an attractive character to contrast, I would think. I don't know. At least that's what I understood his talent to be. But at the same time, I guess it works. We'll see more of him, and maybe I'll get a better idea of
Yeah.
why this talent like makes him so strong. And
Well,
he
this is gonna.
says,
Oh, go
sorry, I
ahead.
haven't seen his comments since. I've seen most of Showa Gekuro Rakugo. It's Rakugo anime on Crunchyroll. It's easier for me to read this series. Oh, interesting. I might actually look that up. Yeah, Luke, go ahead while I look up that anime.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious we're gonna see more of him because we learned that Since the promotional test from 6 years ago in chapter one, he's the only man Ishino Arikawa has rise to the rank of through through to Sumi. So I believe that's the guy who failed everyone.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So obviously we're gonna see him again because he's gonna be like a big deal for what Akani's ultimate goal is of the series to basically prove everyone more to herself, but also to Iso that her father was a good Rakugo.
Yep. And I mean, it is kind of interesting as we learned that if Ishio, he's the guy who was just like, none of these performers live up to my standards. But this guy, this Kaisei, he was promoted in his second year. So we go from a guy who was satisfied with all these people who've trained for like apparently 10 years to get into Rakugo, but this guy he's really impressed with, and I guess that's just a kind of power scale, so to
Yeah,
speak, Rakugo.
yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
then
and
we.
hey,
Oh,
just
go
so
ahead.
you know, I added the Showa series to my watch list. So, because after all this Rakugo manga, I have a feeling I'm going to want to get more into this.
Okay, all right. So then
Anyway,
we.
so then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. So then we cut to after all the performances, we have everyone filling out all the surveys, and we have um Akane basically being like, "Oh, I've lost," because all the feedback is about him. Um, and even at this point, she has to concede, like, "Okay, I thought I did pretty good, but he's obviously better than me at this point." But
Yeah,
before
and
she
I
got,
thought that this is like her
yeah,
humbling moment for a second.
yeah, and I like that because we had the prediction of like she was going to actually fail, and it seems like we our prediction did come true.
Not exactly, but we'll talk about it a little more near the end. But then we have Kaisei like coming in saying, "Wow, these guys wrote a lot of nice things about me," and I'm like, "Man, this guy needs to learn personal space. He's very bad at this." Because he's
Yeah,
like, you don't have to freak out. That kind of hurts. It's like, dude, you were literally talking over a child's shoulder. They're allowed to be panicked. But anyway, this guy basically is like saying, "Oh, you're probably really impressed with me, and you want to get to know me a bit more." And she's like, "No, I don't care. I'm being all tsundere and not taking any advice." Also, I just realized that in the panel below that they're actually refusing payment for Akane, and then I'm like, and that's kind of unfair because she did actually give a performance, so she should be compensated. But
yeah,
that's kind of a minor point.
yeah,
Anyway, so then Akane mentioned she's not an official apprentice yet, so then he actually invites her to join Master Ishio's, be among Master Ishio's disciples. And of course, she's like completely against this idea for obvious reasons.
yeah,
But to be fair, this guy, Kaisei, I will remember his name eventually. Kaisei doesn't know about what happened, so I think that's fair. But at the same time, he, like I said, he actually realized that she has a lot of talent. He recognizes it. So even though he's a little bit full of himself, don't think he's a bad person. He just doesn't understand the concept of personal space.
yeah.
And he's also, I guess, 19, so he's not like he's only 2 years older than her, so he'd probably fair within age range. So that might be the other reason he's this close with her.
Yeah,
But
so I guess because they're both not they're both like under 18, it's not as
no,
creepy.
he's 19.
Oh,
So,
19.
but it's still like 2 years, so it's not
Yeah,
that bad,
yeah,
I guess.
yeah, not that bad. And also I was gonna say, like, I think the reason why she's not getting paid is because like what she said, she's not an official apprentice yet, so I guess she can't get paid.
I guess, but I don't know. It's sometimes it's like I mean, I probably shouldn't be the one making this comment, but I feel like when you do a job, then you should be paid for said job. And even if she can't get the money yet, at least, put it on hold for her later or something.
Yeah. Well, I guess as well because she came in as like a representative of the of oh, what was it?
Shiguma.
Shigo Shiguma, yeah, but not an actual member of it. Like I think it's kind of like how with acting agencies, it's like you once you're part of the agency, you do the performance, you get a cut, the agent gets a cut. But because she's not part of the establishment, they can't actually get the contract in motion, so she can't actually get the payment.
Yeah, but in this case, it's literally physical money in an envelope. It's not like it was hard. I don't know. I'm making a big deal of it. It's not a big deal. But
Yeah,
also, Blazing Boy, want to address your comment. My favorite panel for Magi Lumiere, final bottom panel at the end of chapter. His character I thought I wouldn't like. Yeah, I'll look more into that panel that you're talking about to understand. But we're going to finish up this chapter first. I did want to address your comment. Anyway, so then, interestingly enough, the next thing that Keisei mentions is what I kind of wanted to talk about because he actually says, in the Rakugo world, everything's determined by seniority. That's why my master wants to bring about a revolution by gathering fresh young talent. It's a perfect environment for us where we can be praised by our work instead of how long you've been around. You should join us, Akane. And I'm just thinking, hold on, did we just get Ishio's, like, basically the main antagonist, so to speak, his motivation? So, like, his whole thing is he wants to disrupt the Rakugo institution because it's too fixated on seniority. And I mean, if that was the case, that still doesn't explain why he had to kick out like all those other people, unless, of course, he's just like, you guys don't have the talent to disrupt the industry. And that's still, I don't know if that's a good reason.
maybe.
So either way, I did like Akane's next thing. She's as soon as he's like, okay, you should join us. She's like, okay, well in that case, I'm gonna join Shiguma instead. And then he's just like, wait, what? I'm losing track of this. And she's like, oh, you just said it. As long as you have talent, he'll recognize it. So that's her way of saying it's like, ha, I have talent. So then I can foster that talent and then shove it in his face.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have her saying, we have her. I love Gaku's line, like, we may only be apprentices, but I've still got seniority, and you can't boss me around like that.
Yeah. And then, interesting enough, she gives Kaisei like a little bit of respect, saying Kaisei Arikawa, sir. I'm like, okay, how come he gets respect now? I don't understand this girl. Like that would even make even less sense because he's only like 2 years older than her. I don't know.
well,
I don't
here's
understand Akane sometimes.
well, here's the sorry. Where's the thing? Some people call me sir, and I now like 2 years older than me, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, even that aside, it's just like she shows respect at the weirdest times.
Yeah,
Because like literally that, like he's saying that bubble before Gaku was saying, "Hey, I have seniority. You can't treat me like this." But then immediately she treats like Kaisei with some respect. I
well, I
don't get
guess
it.
because she hasn't
Kind of
seen
funny.
Gaku perform
I
yet.
guess maybe after that she will. Fair enough.
Yeah,
And then she says, "Yeah, you better get ready." And then the property owner mentions, like, look at all these surveys you received, my dear. I was just making copies for you to take home. So the reason she didn't see any surveys talking about how awesome she is because the lady is making some copies for her to take home, which on one hand I do like because it's like established that okay, our character does have talent, people recognize that talent, but because she doesn't realize that people acknowledge her talent, she's going to strive to work even harder. And I thought that was a nice touch. But at the
yeah,
same time, it kind of just proves, like what you were saying a little earlier, that she didn't really fail technically. She just thinks she did.
yeah,
So I don't know. It's like almost the same thing, but a little different.
yeah. And then Akane rounds out the chapter by saying to Shiguma, like, "Hey, I want to become your pupil."
Yep.
So
And so I'm assuming next chapter, because Shiguma also received that text message from the property owner saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed Akana's performance. Like, it's amazing. So I think either he's going to accept her or he's going to give her more challenges. I don't know. I just feel like he should just accept her at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can get the story moving. Oh, and Blazing Boy, I found the panel you were talking about. And yeah, that it was a cool panel. I will admit the president from Maggie Lumiere does interest me because at first I thought he was just going to be a funny, eccentric character. But he does, I think, have more story to him. And I do have to read the newest chapters that came out today from Maggie Lumiere. I didn't realize 2 chapters came out. But I'll do that later because we're streaming right now.
Yeah, and anyway, that was Akane, pretty good chapter. Looking forward to find out what's going to happen next. So I guess now we can move on to Duran.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I'll be back quickly. So if you
want me to
want
start
to,
again?
yeah, if you want to start, I'll just be back in 2 minutes.
Not a problem. Okay, guys. So we're moving on to Duran because we usually like to tackle all the new series because the newer series are like shorter in nature, so there's usually like less to talk about because they're all establishing chapters. Oh yeah, thanks, Hayes. Appreciate it. Things are a little long-winded, so I'm always never sure how much we're saying too much, but we also like to comment on as much as we possibly can. But anyway, Duran, I really enjoyed these chapters. I think something I realized this chapter especially is this series is very good at just throwing out a character and making me really enjoy them. Because in this particular case, we see Toda, and I might switch between Toda and Toma because his first and last names are pretty simple to say, thankfully. So expect to hear both. But yeah, so Toda comes in and everyone's cheering him on. And at first, I was honestly expecting a setup for Toda to be like this really popular guy, while our man Yuji is quite the opposite. So I thought that was going to be the big joke. But that didn't quite happen. But yeah, everyone's cheering on Toda, saying, hey, this is awesome. Have some candy. Let's go get ramen. And he's just like, all right, cool, thanks. But yo, just come over to my house. I'll cook you up some foods. And then Toma finds out about Dora in Kusanagi, and everyone's talking about, oh man, a Mononoke at headquarters. And then people, of course, are all making their judgments. Like, is he evil? Is he dangerous? So it's like a big rumor, and we're probably going to hear what Toda's going to say. And unsurprising to all of us, including the candidates, these warriors at the HQ, he's literally out for Dora, saying Dora Sasaki. And so, the big question is, what's his thing against Dora? Then we see Dora training up, apparently just trying to physically push himself to build up supernatural energy because he's a kind of a musclehead like that. I do have to give Dora some credit because he does come up with strategies and that do work, but he's also still not the smartest person because I guess there's just too many like kind of meatheads right now in Shonen, to be fair. Now with Senku gone especially. So with Dora kind of just like, oh man, this isn't working. I can't muscle my way through supernatural energy. And apparently a week's gone by since last chapter, so mild time skip. So then Dora's just screaming to the heavens, and then we got our dude, Toda, coming in. And then I honestly thought this was going to be one of those times where a character is going to be like, oh, wait, who are you? But now Dora actually knows who he is. He knows who Toda is. And Toda is, of course, surprised. Dora is a samurai, unsurprisingly, because he has no supernatural energy. And then Toda's coming in saying, I can finally settle the score. I can finally pay you back for your fight with my Kohai. And when I read that, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if Dora has like a past where he's done some bad things, or if this was a misunderstanding. And then we kind of get like the backstory immediately of how they became rivals, so to speak. Well, at least according to Toda.
Yeah, it's more. I'm back. I'm back anyway.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's more like a self-professed rival.
Yeah, which is still, we got a rival character because Jinchio's not going to be around. In a weird way, it feels like Jinchio's kind of been pushed off to the sideline for a bit. I'm sure she'll be back, but I guess this is going to be like our substitute friend rival character.
Well, unless it's like a Taiju situation.
Yeah, here's the thing. I didn't want to say anything. I have heard some people saying that maybe the Japanese audience wasn't really clicking with Junchio, and so much like, kind of like Taiju, when people were like, "Oh man, I hope this guy's not the protagonist." We might have just gotten a quick rewrite here.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of sad because I like Jinchio. I thought her intro was a little rough, but I think they did a good job with her. But this is fine. I think I like. To be fair, I do think I like Toto and Yuji more. Sad to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
But then we get the backstory. So Toto comes in saying, "You're the first year who beat up my Kohai." And then, honestly, I thought Dora was going to tell him it's a misunderstanding, but he's just squaring up to fight Toto right now. And then we see Toto beat himself up immediately, and I was so confused.
Yeah, Dora basically gives the same reaction. It's like, what the hell?
Yep. And then we find out what actually happened. Apparently, like the Kohai, like 14 people tried to come up against Dora. I don't know why. I don't think they'll tell us. It doesn't matter. It was just kind of say 14 people came up to Dora and tried to beat him up, and he's just like, yeah, no, I didn't even get hurt because he's Dora.
Yeah.
And so then Toda's just like, hey, hang on. Now that I leveled the playing field, because Toda just beat himself up as an apology, I guess. Dora's like, now it's time to fight one-on-one. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And then immediately gets pummeled. Immediately.
And then it's like, oh, I didn't know anybody could be this strong. My whole body's tingling. And he gets like really excited, like, he beat me up, it's tingling. And then he keeps going back more and more and more until 4 months later he's actually in a cast and and a crutch. And he's like, okay, tomorrow's is my first day as a samurai. This will be my last chance to win. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna win.
Yeah, but at the same time, Dora like acknowledges some respect, saying, "You got some guts coming back day after day, even though I keep getting beat up, and you insist I don't go easy on you." Because I guess that's the story's way of saying it's like, listen, it's not Dora's fault that he's getting this injured. He's literally just trying to honor Toda's request. And then, of course, Toda is just happy that Dora knows his name. And then, like, apparently, it's been 742 days since our last battle, which in a weird way kind of gives us a timeline for how long Toda has been he's been, I guess, almost over 2 years. He's been a samurai.
2.5, I would say. No, 360. Let me get up the calculator.
Yeah, sure. It's like 712 with 2 years, and then so that's another 30 days. So about 2 years and a month. But go ahead, do the math. Anyway,
so 713. That would be 730. That would be 2 years. So it's like, yeah, 2 years and 2 years and a month. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, a month and half a month, because that's only 12 days. So 2 years, 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, whatever. The point is, Dora is like, he's excited to fight Dora again because apparently he's been counting down the days since their last fight for some reason. And then Dora's actually impressed that he's gotten stronger because he like punched a rock. And then Dora's immediately like, nope, I'm still stronger than you.
Yeah.
Still can beat you. He's like, yeah, I can still beat you in one punch. But then he gets up and then Dora's surprised and he's surprised. And he's just like, aha. And the Dora's like, did I pull my punches too much? And then he punched harder and he's just like, uh-oh, I might have gone too far. And then apparently Kusanagi mentions that Toda has like astounding amounts of supernatural energy. So that's probably important to keep in mind. And that's also why he keeps getting up, because he's like, Dora, why aren't you using supernatural energy? This isn't a real fight right now. And then Dora's like, what? I don't have any supernatural energy. What are you talking about? Also, I guess this kind of proves that Toda is kind of dumb himself.
Yeah.
Kind of is obvious. But he's pretty dumb himself if he didn't figure out Dora doesn't have any supernatural energy, because Jinchio figured that out immediately. So, basically, then Kusanagi points out, like, this is why me and Dora work together, because I give him supernatural energy so he can fight Mononoke. And then Dora, I think, says something really nice. He's like, if I had supernatural energy, I wouldn't have teamed up with him. He's like, now that I think about it, I'm glad I don't have any. And I think that's a nice moment for
Yeah,
them.
I like that a lot as well. And then we have him just being like, "What? You have no supernatural energy to use a Mononoke's supernatural energy to fight? That's the most ludicrous thing I've ever." And then Dora's like, "Okay, man, you don't have to put it like that."
Yeah, then Kusanagi gets pats. Like I like how everybody's just nice to Kusanagi now. Like he's had a rough life up until now, so I'm just happy for him.
Yeah,
Kind of want to point
yeah.
that out. Oh, and we have like a bot if you want to deal with
Oh,
that real
okay.
quick.
I'll get rid of them.
Anyway, Toda is like upset because he's just like, man, if you can't use supernatural energy, we can't have a real fight. So he's slumping away, and Dora's like, hey, hold on. I mean, I don't want to actually fight you, but you explain supernatural energy to me because we kind of haven't really learned too much about it, to be honest. So anyway, we kind of the basics of it because supernatural energy isn't like super fleshed out at this point in the story, but it's just saying that it can be used to inflict damage as well as defense. So this is like the most basic uses of like energy in manga. You can like make yourself stronger both offensively and defensively. It's kind of all that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Toto points out, it's like, yeah, it's like the first thing we learn how to do because it's the biggest difference between samurai and civilians and pros and amateurs or something. And then Dora brings up a good point that so you can battle Mononoke barehanded, and Toto points out technically that's possible, but there's no human who has the physical and abilities and supernatural energy to defeat a Mononoke. So that's probably some foreshadowing right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of glad we got our first like little bits of the series. Well, not actually the first bits, I should say, actually, but we got some foreshadowing for things to come in the future. I think you were pointing out hand swords.
Yeah,
So this might be close to that. I don't know. It might just be boxing gloves or something.
might be, might be.
But there could be sharp, pointy parts in the boxing gloves. But either
Yeah,
way, then we also learned about the swords a little bit. Uh, they're called Gepakto blade sword.
Gep
Gepak
Gepakuto swords.
Gepak. Yeah, you got it. Gepakto sword. Okay. However, so anyway, the G swords. I'm just going to call them that. The G swords apparently can amplify supernatural energy output. I think that's a bit of a explanation because apparently he just shrouds it with energy, and then he can just use it to hit things. And then Dora's like, wow, you're surprisingly clever, Toda, and a good teacher. And I'm like, no, he's not. Everything he explained was super simple. You're just really
Yeah,
dumb, Dora.
yeah. And also this actually gives the explanation of why Yuji's sword had supernatural energies in them.
Yeah, but the way that, I mean, I don't want to pull up the chapter right now, but Jin Shio made it mention that it was as if he, like, Yuji used like a special technique that's like specific to samurai officers that let him use a mononoke, like a mononoke sealed in the sword or something. Unless, of course, that was a mistranslation, but I'm not too sure. Oh, and yeah,
Hmm.
Hayes, definitely, I would recommend picking this up. There was a lot of development within the last arc, a lot of great character development and story development. And then, yeah, Blazing Boy, if you want a real cool action manga, Party Gems, go read Kaijiki Chief. The art and storytelling really interesting. I think I saw that on Manga Plus. I have no idea what it's about. I thought it was a cooking manga, and I didn't even read, or not read, but I didn't even watch Food Wars yet, so I wasn't sure if I really wanted to get into it or not. But
Yeah,
I'll
the
check the
one
word part because I already have a couple manga on my list, but maybe.
Yeah, there's one series on Manga Plus that I'm wanting to see, and it's the one that people are actually raving about a lot. If I could just find it, which one it actually was.
Okay.
Um,
I'm not too sure if I'm convinced on a cooking manga, but you guys are recommending it hard, so maybe I will. Because I haven't even seen Food Wars, like I said, despite all the hype it gets. Um, but at the same, because I'm just not a big cooker. But at the same time, to be fair, a lot of manga I read are not about activities I do anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
yeah, here's what it was. It was on Shonen Jump News, unofficial. Takopi no Gensai. Like people are raving about that.
Isn't that the one Blazing Boy was talking about earlier, the horror manga?
I think so. Yeah, that's the one I'm interested in checking out.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely check that one out because I like horror manga. So I'll add that one for sure, Blazing Boy. But I don't know about the cooking manga just yet, just because again, I don't know if I'm ready to start my delving into cooking series. But since you recommended it since its beginning, I might give it a try. Um, but I also have to read the new Maggie Lemire today by itself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then knowledge is power. That's my motto, is according to Toda. And I'm like, it is, but you're really dumb. That doesn't make sense for that to be your motto. If that was a smart character, that would make sense. But then even, I guess, like Dora said, I guess he's smarter than he looks. But I don't know. He still seems pretty dumb to me. If he's
Yeah.
the epitome of intelligence in this world, I'm kind of scared. Because I really want like a actual smart like battle character who uses tactics and
Well,
intelligence.
technically we've got that with Yuji.
Well, Yuji, I think, is more like he has overwhelming power and skill. I think what I more mean is, like, usually my favorite characters are very tactical mindsets where they think about how to, like, outmaneuver, outthink an enemy, and then use their weaknesses and powers against them. Like, Yuji is just like the quintessential strongest fighter of the series. So it's a little bit different.
Okay.
And then, hang on, I'll just read some comments we just got. It's a silent voice mixed with a bit of pun. Never recommended. Yeah, it's true, Blazing Boys. I don't think you have recommended a bad series to me yet, at least to my knowledge. So yeah, that is you have a good track record.
Oh my god, if it's silent voice mixed with a bit of poon poon, oh my word.
Okay, so going back to yeah, definitely try out the horror manga, and then I might try the cookie manga. You guys seem to be recommending it fairly strongly. But I also still have to get back onto that other manga that's been called like the Fire Force successor, um, because I know Chapter 3 came out and I haven't read it yet. But anyway, Kusanagi jumps onto Dora's head for a second, and then he remembers, because he actually does use his head, the time when Dora emitted a lot of supernatural energy. And so then Kusanagi just started channeling all his it's not cursed energy, it's not Jujutsu Kaisen, supernatural energy into Dora, and it freaks out Toda immensely.
Yeah.
It's good art too.
And then we have Dora basically describing it as some kind of gloopy stuff. So I'm like, is it just made of what you guys would call gelatin jelly?
Yeah, jelly, that's what we call it.
Oh, I thought you called it gelatin. Like,
No, gelatin. Well, there's two different things. Like jelly is basically jam, right? Like grape jam and stuff. And then like gelatin is more just um like jello or
yeah, that's
kind
what I
of like
meant. Like, jelly over here is what gelatin is in America. The thing that you shake and it wobbles, the dessert that wobbles.
okay. Oh yeah, Gachiakta. Yeah, that was the series. Yeah, I was talking about. I got to keep up with that one because that it's super edgy, and that's exactly the kind of stuff I love to read. Anyway, going back to the chapter. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
yeah, then Kusanagi mentions. Oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
yeah, I was gonna just say what you were gonna say.
Oh yeah. So then it's kind of interesting because I like the way Kusanagi explains it. It's like he describes Dora as if he's the katana. Basically, like the way that Toto was putting his energy into the G sword. Kusanagi is doing that for Dora, and it's actually makes sense in that way where it's like Dora will be wielding Kusanagi while Kusanagi will be kind of wielding Dora. So it kind of adds like an extra layer to their partnership.
Yeah, and I like that, and I like that a lot about their relationship. As we get uh, as we get oh, what was his name again?
Toda or Toma.
Toma. We get Toma thinking like, oh, a Mononoke's supernatural energy is extremely toxic to humans. the mere presence of it can be lethal. So how? And then we get Yuji coming in saying, oh, maybe because Dora's supernatural energy is so low, the normal energy clash doesn't occur. So, okay, so is it just anti-magic?
Oh, here's the thing. If it was anti-magic like Asta, then it would just nullify the magic. Like no, because we were talking about Black Clover earlier. Like nobody can
Yeah.
back up Asta right now because their magic would be canceled by his anti-magic. But in Dora's case, it's more like he can just absorb like supernatural energy like no one's business. And I kind of, I don't know, maybe he metabolizes it or something, because like he neutralized that poison. So I thought it was anti-magic like thing, but I don't think it's quite like that, considering Kusanagi can put his magic into Dora. But at the same time,
Okay.
I'm glad they got past this whole thing because this is not one of those things that I needed multiple chapters on. So I'm glad they kind
Yeah.
of pushed past this. So now they
Yeah, it
can
was.
start doing real missions. And I'm guessing that Toda is going to join their group. And if that's the case, I think Toda and Yuji will have a good dynamic because Toda is super popular and has so many friends while being like a relatively new samurai, while Yuji is going to be like the strongest samurai and people aren't going to like him.
Yeah, that is going to be like a. Why aren't I popular? I've been here longer.
Yeah, it'll be funny. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, but yeah, that was pretty much everything I had to say on Dora Dora.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to see what the sales of this series are because it's not placing too well either on the
Yeah,
table of contents. But man, this one I'm definitely hoping survives. I wouldn't be surprised though if it didn't, just because, of course, while we're enjoying it, it's also like a very standard, very predictable story. It's just it still maintains, it's still good despite that, or even because of it in some ways.
yeah. So anyway, guys, what series would you like us to tackle next? Let us know.
Okay. I'll double check the time on that one. Okay, let's see. On the off chance you guys don't have any particular preference, let's see. We have still to talk about. We have a couple. Mm, maybe we could talk about Undead Unluck if no one has any suggestions.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess we could do that because I've got because this again was like a very simple chapter.
Yeah, which is kind of not what I thought Chapter 101 was going to be. We thought,
Yeah,
oh
I
man,
know.
this is going to be the big chapter. It's like, not really, but it was still decent. I do have my I some concerns I did want to bring up with it. This is kind of one of those chapters I wish One Smart was here so that I can kind of hash it out with them
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like, okay,
Actually,
I know you love this series, man, but
I'll see if it's working. Yeah, it looks like yeah, I'll send him a message. Hopefully, um, try again.
I don't think Discord's working though. So
Um, no, it isn't. Oh crap. Yeah.
that's okay.
Oh well.
I can
Yes.
talk with
No.
them later if I ever wanted to.
Yes.
But
No.
I think we did talk a little about the chapter, and he still enjoys it for what it is, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all have our preferences in that way. But yeah, Undead Unluck, chapter 101, regulation.
Yeah. Starting off with a color page, basically going
Yeah,
through the
Norbert,
art.
I hate it too. It sucks that it's not working, but yeah, I don't know. It's what it is.
Yeah.
But
We.
yeah, color page is awesome. Yeah, you're going to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah. Just going through the arcs of the series so far.
Yep. Like really big moments from each of them. But at the same time, it kind of reminds me like there were a lot of cool moments in each of these like little parts. But at the same time, I don't know. For me, it doesn't feel like, oh man, look how far we came. Because I don't know. Looking at all these things, I was like, man, a lot has happened in not too much time. That's how
Yeah.
I feel.
Maybe if it showed, maybe it was like more focused on Fuko's faces, like from when she was at the beginning of the series to now.
Yeah, but I mean, Fuku's not even here right now.
I know.
So the first page is kind of just a bunch of metaphorical stuff. So I'm just going to kind of sum it up. Basically, kind of in like a Chainsaw Man style fashion, they talk about like, can you imagine something like not existing, like a star, like all those concepts and things about stars not existing? Well, in our world, that was actually true up until Uma Galaxy was added. And then all of a sudden, the concept of star and the words all just came with it. And then they tie it back into Andy just destroying Thirst immediately. And they're saying it's like as soon as that rule was gone, the idea of Thirst is also disappeared with it. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so they're trying to explain the stakes of like what an Uma is. It felt slightly unnecessary just because I feel like our series has gotten to the point where it's already established these things. Because like when languages came into place, all of a sudden people didn't understand Chinese and only understood English. Like that was like a whole thing. So I
Yeah,
don't know if it was necessary, but I think it was probably just a quick reminder of like the consequences of what these fights are in Undead Unluck. Anyway, and then he said, "I'm glad it's not just Milo who you has been saying the good lately." Yeah, we'll be talking about it. I do think the last arc was really solid. This arc, I have a few issues with, just like the chapters individually, but I generally like what's happening. That's, I guess, my thoughts on the current arc.
yeah, and I have something that I want to say in a minute when we get to it, because
Okay.
we have Lucy bringing up the fact, oh, my throat was really dry a moment ago, but now it's not. Man, I wish I had that at this moment in time.
Oh yeah, that is very unfortunate timing.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then we have the Uma for insects coming down, which Andy immediately destroys, and Coffee's like, it's insects. Killing this one would be a bad idea, and Andy's like, good thing the low IQ ones are such easy pickings, and they're arguing about. You do realize losing insects are has its consequence, and Lucy and Lucy's like, but there is no, but there being no insects isn't that big of a deal, is it? I'm like, Lucy, yes, yes it is. Bees.
yeah, Lucy's not very smart.
I was
But
like,
whatever. I think she's a child, so I'm accepting it just because I'm
yeah,
assuming she's a kid.
yeah,
Doesn't know
but
better.
yeah, but even then she should know, like, bees are insects. If you get rid of bees, the world can't pollinate.
Yeah,
Therefore,
but I would like to add it's not just bees. Several insects, including like monarch butterflies and several others, also
I
pollinate.
I know, but still, bees are like the main like benefactors.
I don't know if that's. I don't know if actually that's true. I mean, someone can like correct me one way or another if that's true or not. But insects in general are an important part of the food chain. So without them, uh, like okay, like without insects, what happens to like spiders and then et cetera, et cetera. So many birds, like a lot of animals, like thrive on this. So the entire food chain is messed up. But
Yeah,
it one smart brought up something which I'll probably talk about a little bit later. I don't know if I want to talk about it now or not. I'll bring it up later, actually. Um, so then immediately the environment just shifts around them. And then um, Claudie's like, what did I tell you? Look at what you did. You just messed up and a chain reaction happened. And he's like, it's fine. If we can't keep going forward, then we're not going to be able to take down Ghost and Ruin. So if we can't save the world, we might as well just keep trying to destroy the world to save it. I don't know. That's Andy's logic. And in my opinion, that is really dumb logic.
that is really dumb logic.
But I kind of see what he's saying. It's like, okay, the world is crashing into the sun. So we're in crisis mode anyway. And I'm like, okay, cool. But also, assuming that you can save the world, there's not going to be a very much of one to be
No, there
saved.
isn't.
So yeah, I don't know. Andy, I don't. One thing with this chapter is I don't know if I fully agree with this philosophy, but it is the kind of character he is, so I understand. But like I was saying with Duran Duran, there's too many meatheads in Shonen Jump, and especially with Senkukan.
Yeah. Oh my God, Senku, you went too early.
Yeah,
Although,
all these dummies are running Shonen Jump. We have Asta,
although,
and Dora, and Andy, and Maru. Like, man, we need more smart characters. We need smart
although, although he he might not be gone for long, given the comments I've been seeing from Inagaki himself.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that when we get to it because
Yeah,
I
well,
I don't want to overblow those because at the same time, like he is also acknowledging that the series is ended. Um,
yeah,
but anyway, continuing on, yeah, I'm also gonna miss the Doctor Stone cast haze. Anyway,
yeah.
it's continuing onward.
Oh,
Oh, are you gonna say something?
um, also, Hayes, just in case you didn't hear earlier, on Sunday this week we're doing a big Doctor Stone stream. Like it won't be a traditional stream like this; it'll just be dedicated to Doctor Stone.
Yeah, and then like our big manga discussion stream will be again somewhere in the week like we're doing now. Because Doctor Stone's, of course, our favorite Shonen Jump series, so it seems right to have a whole dedicated stream, talk about everything we want to talk about.
Hmm.
Anyway, continuing onward. So then, yeah, like Clancy says, don't goad them, just steer clear of them. And yeah, he's right. It's like even if Andy's like, oh, I have to take out the ones in my way, stop attracting attention.
Yeah, especially when you come across Gravity.
Yep, like literal gravity, which for the record, I feel like should have been a way bigger deal than it is. Because, okay, I will admit, this is where I'm starting to get some physics lessons here, which we'll get a lot more when we get to Dr. Stone. But like gravity is one of the fundamental forces of the universe. And technically speaking, you can debate whether or not it's a real force or not. But that's a different discussion that I think is too advanced for this stream. But it's a fundamental force of the universe. This shouldn't just be a minor UMA that Andy just took, like deals with this chapter on the side.
I would
I don't know. This
argue. I
author
would
is
argue
just
that it is the most fundamental force. I would argue, yeah, it is a force because you're being forced by gravity to be planted on the ground.
okay. Well, I should probably clarify then, Luke. When I meant fundamental forces, that's like a definition in physics where uh, the strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity—they're like the four big forces of the universe.
Yeah.
And gravity is one of them. That's kind of what I meant by that. And
Okay.
technically, it's actually the weakest of the four, if you can believe that. But I've seen the
I,
math, and it's true. Basically, the force
uh,
that holds atoms together and the force of magnetism is stronger than gravity.
okay. Fine. Well, I get. Yeah, I guess magnetism would be stronger now that I think about it.
Yeah, and again, if there are numbers to prove it, but that's not particularly important. The point is, gravity is still insane, and so an UMA that like encompasses gravity should be a much bigger deal. If we had
Yeah.
seasons, we had like the seasons, which are only relative to like our planet's like position around the sun. This is gravity. It's like fundamental. I don't understand this story sometimes,
I don't either. Also,
but
Hayes, Dr. Stone Appreciation Stream. Love that idea, fam. Yep. And it won't just be us two as well, it'll be somebody else. Um, you're from the Project Manga. He's from the Project Manga
yeah,
page.
yeah, he is.
Yeah, yeah. It's someone that you've had on before on Project Manga. Hint,
Yep.
hint.
And continuing onward, gravity is just saying, "Ha, a mere human rewriting the rules of the world, impudent as absurd." And I'm thinking that's another thing with this chapter, and I'll talk more about in a different panel. But keep that idea in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ends up going on a whole thing about the weight of your sins or something, and then Andy's being all cool, like, "Oh man, what good would knowing that be do for a human like me?" And then we have Slice and Magma.
Okay,
And I
Magma.
feel like a lot of these rules, these umas, are just like okay, magma and slice. Like really,
What slice? What does that mean?
it just means like to cut things. Which then what it would unslice be? I guess unsliceable would make some sense,
Yeah.
but
Which means
you can still punch something that's unsliceable, so it's not like
yeah, but
indestructible.
which means Andy's gonna get rid of sliced bread. No.
Ah, that's a good point. Yep. And then basically, Andy's going about this whole thing about rather than be constrained by rules, I would rather break them and die trying. But he's like, but I'm undead, so I won't die. And I will admit, like, a lot of this series is just like trying to be really cool because the next thing he's saying, if you're going to tie me down, give it your best shot, you stinking rules. And so he's just like trying to say like he won't be tied down. That's the kind of character he is. And this
Yeah,
series likes to do that whole like, look how cool everything is. Look how awesome my character is standing up against the fundamental forces of the universe, like Slice and Gravity, which are apparently on the same level.
I don't
Um,
get that.
yeah. And then Andy is just saying, your logic is your rules bound by your logic never fails to blow my mind. And he's like, there ain't no rule. I only got to have one body. And then he uses a new technique called dead core dead, which I guess is meant to be dead quartet. I
Yeah,
don't think the translation came off super
I
well,
don't.
but
I don't think it did because technically that's not a quartet.
yeah, which, whatever.
Yeah.
They
Also,
tried. I do know the translator on Twitter, and he's a decent dude. But he's doing his best.
yeah. Also, as well, I think Slice and Gravity being on the same level. I think that's a metaphor to when people say, "Oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread."
Oh, you know what? Maybe, maybe. And then, like Andy has like splits himself off into his skeleton, his skin, and his blood. Now, I have concerns about how he's able to control these things because we've seen the blood thing before. Okay,
Yeah,
but how is he moving his skeleton and skin without like muscles? Like that's how you move your body. I don't know.
I
Like
don't
again,
know.
this story likes to be really cool, and it likes to show that cool factor, but then it also likes to pretend like it's also smart about things, but it's really just kind of all over the place.
Yeah,
Because then apparently gravity is like does a gravity times 10 thing, but he's like, but I am skin, so I weigh nothing. And I'm like, okay, but if you weigh nothing, you also are going to have no impact against your attack. And yet apparently it did. Skin sliced through gravity like it was butter. Man, I don't even. That one was just like, uh, and then Slices like try to cut blood, and he's just like, aha, but I can't cut blood. So I'll instead go for the body, but then the blood coagulates and punches him, which, at least that was kind of cool. I'll give you that.
yeah. And then we
And
have
then Andy tries, his skeleton gets eaten by a magma snake,
yeah.
which I guess it survives.
And my question is that since Gravity is dead now, why is it June and everyone else not floating away?
Good question, Luke. And this is where we get to the thing I wanted to talk about on page 15. So on page 15, we talk. What was her name? Chun Li, I think. Wait, no, is that her name? I forgot. No, Min. What's her name again? I'm just gonna call her Lee for now because I don't remember her name. But yeah, Lee mentions like, okay, we have a situation here. The outrages change occurring one after another. If this keeps happening, and then June's just like, oh, okay, Andy is pulling out all the stops, and I'm like, June, you're being very, very lax about this. And then her solution to Andy's shenanigans is figure out which Umas are gone based on the new changes. Then locate capable UMAs, covering the laws and capture them. Don't forget to share this information, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's what's happening basically. So for every UMA Andy's taking down, well, as we saw with, I think, the last chapter, Union is capturing other UMAs to kind of compensate. So just like they're doing for the sun hurtling, they're trying to use other UMAs to deal with the fact that, the sun is nearby and heating up the planet. They're also taking out UMAs or capturing UMAs to like deal with Andy's shenanigans because I guess they can just find UMAs really easily right now for some reason. And so with gravity, like I was talking to One Smart about, he mentioned like they're probably using centrifugal force, which for those who don't know, centrifugal means is like basically a pseudo force that happens when you're rotating and it kind of keeps things in place, so to speak. So there's probably like kind of pseudo gravity UMA, like a centrifugal
Oh,
force
okay.
that they're bringing together. Now, I would still debate that, okay, that kind of works, but also centrifugal force compared to gravity itself is still like not that much compensation, but whatever.
But
And
here's
then same thing with Slice and Magma. They're like with Slice, they could find Uma Tear, and then with Magma, I don't know, Uma Lava, which is I don't something like that.
yeah. But here's the but here's the thing. Even if they did get a subgravity, the gravity would change, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it should, but apparently they just compensated for it. I guess is what the
That's
story is trying to
that's
tell
not
us.
how physics work.
It's not. But this series doesn't care about how physics works. It redefined revolution because it thought it would be a fun idea. That's the thing. The series really likes to be cool and fun, and it is, I guess. But if you're anything like me, you really want to think about because I think Undead Unluck, honestly, and I was thinking about this for a while, it has one of the most interesting power systems, like just in general in Shonen. Like above it, I would have definitely put Nen and JoJo stands and even World Triggers system, but and even Fire Force. But Undead Unluck has like honestly one of the best power systems. But the problem that holds it back is the authors plays way too fast and loose with the rules of the power system. So it comes off as more just like a cool concept. I guess like for a comparison, kind of like Chainsaw Man, where there's like different devils that compare different concepts, and then if the Chainsaw Man eats them, that erases those rules. It's pretty cool, but it's also just kind of like, oh, there's a devil for all the other random fears that human beings have. So it's just like, and then you can just make those disappear and appear as you want. So I'm not a huge fan of that.
Okay.
But you're right, Luke. That's not how physics works. This is not at all how physics works. Without gravity, a lot of things would go wrong. And you can't just like pseudo gravity this. But I guess that's what's happening. Because then immediately we get, yeah, Hayes, I'm glad you like my metaphor. Then we get, Jules gets contacted by Luna. And she says regulations will be enacted. And then apparently it goes on to say Umas and negators exist solely for creating the rules of the world, which kind of already knew, and to make an ideal world that God wants. And then this is the part I also want to talk about. A negator eliminating the rules is unprecedented. God will never allow that to stand. So, yeah, go ahead.
Isn't that what they've been doing for the entire series?
Exactly. So I think what they meant to say here is that you guys are only supposed to like destroy the ones that I tell you to in forms of quests through Apocalypse. But since Andy is just going willy nilly and just destroying rules as he sees fit, that's what God's mad. That's what I've took it as. So it's not as big a point. But at the same time, it's like Gravity said it before, like a human writing rules, how preposterous. And I'm like, that's what they've been doing. That's what negators do. They negate the rules. This is like the whole way this thing works. Anyway, apparently God's really mad at Andy right now. And I'm going to be honest, God is kind of fair to be angry at Andy because I am also a little angry at Andy.
Yeah.
He's destroying everything.
Like, I mean, is there an Uma for, I don't know, electricity?
Yeah, and this like revert everything back to the Stone Age, like Dr. Stone stuff.
Oh my god, Seiko would like to have a few. I want to see a crossover with Seiko and Andy after this chapter.
But oh man, he would. I mean, like Andy just breaking all the rules of science just because he's like, I'm not going to be bound by your rules. I'm just going to become a skeleton man and just punch things. Because literally, what we see the next page is that like Andy's skeleton goes from Magma's core, which I will admit, drawn really cool, but also his skeleton is just surviving magma.
So I guess does magma represent all fire in the world?
No, magma I think is just like the magma like that volcanoes have. But also if you think about it, that's like all of the what's it called? The mantle? What's it? Hang on. Layers of the earth. Gonna have to look up this real quick because it's been a long time since I looked up geology stuff. What's this stuff called? Yeah, I think it's called the mantle. Yeah, the mantle. Basically, all the lava that surrounds, like, or not the lava, the magma that surrounds the Earth's core. Like Andy just got rid of it.
Oh my god!
He just got rid of it, and that's like a huge portion like, of our planet. I don't understand how this is supposed to work, but apparently And the other thing I want to bring up with you, Luke, is remember last chapter what Andy said? He said, "Oh my God, this is hard mode." What hard mode?
Yeah.
You've been taking out all these things with single-handedly.
Oh my God, Andy, make up your mind.
Andy is way too overpowered. And I mean, like, yeah. And then Juice is all like, "Ha, you shouldn't have got rid of Fuko. That's why he's going on this rampage right now. That was a mistake." And then no rules can tie him down. And then another interesting thing we learn is apparently there's been 100 loops going on in this world. We're on a loop number 100. So, and then Juice is saying Undead is going to take you guys down this loop or something. And then immediately Luna's like, okay, well, in that case, I'm just going to exercise God's authority and enact regulations. I don't know what that means, but we're going to find out next chapter.
I guess
chapter called Regulations, we don't learn about it.
I guess Luna has the power to like revive Umas.
I don't know, because regulation sounds like someone made a theory that perhaps it's like just like Umas and negators are things. There might be regulations, which are like another set of creations, like just like the theory was like everything ends in shun, like destruction, execution, ablation, like all these shun words. And then they said like in union is one of those regulations because it also ends in yun.
Okay.
But it's an interesting idea, like something to like kind of coordinate or just control excess, but we'll see. At this right now, Andy's just having the time of his life, even though he's destroying the universe. But
yeah,
this chapter was something.
Yeah, hey, hard mode. Ha ha ha! I'm screaming. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say my overall thoughts in this chapter is it was fun and cool, and we got to see some new techniques from Andy. But I also kind of points out like one of the fundamental issues I have with this series, which is that it likes to have like this very interesting, intriguing power system where universal concepts are going up against each other, but at the same time they aren't given the appropriate weight or attention that they should have. Nor because like in the beginning of the series we had like a whole thing about Uma's spoil, for example, which was really cool, where we had to confront it and had like this whole interesting fight over it. But now we're taking out these major rules like gravity and magma, I guess technically, and like insects, and they're all going down like super easily, despite the fact that they're very fundamental parts of our world. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like the author is almost making too much light of their own system for the sake of showing off their protagonist.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of like what this author wants to do, but it feels very amateurish to me. Kind of making not the best use of their own incredible system.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But yeah, that was
yeah, feel free to share your thoughts on this. I know you're a huge Undead Unluck fan.
Oh, I think Discord's working again now.
Oh, cool. Interesting timing. Okay.
Yeah, it's working again. Oh, once more was on.
What do you mean? Oh, okay. Well, you can just let him know. I just finished up roasting Undead Unluck.
Okay.
But I think we could talk about it, so it's fine. But yeah, that was Undead Unluck. And Luke, do you have any more thoughts? Because I know I was talking a lot.
I did not have any more thoughts.
Okay, awesome. So we still have a couple more series. We have Ayakashi, Witch Watch, of course, Saving Dr. Stone for the end, and My Hero, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, guys, feel free to pick one of those series if you'd like. If not, I think Witch Watch would be a pretty decent one to go into next.
Yeah, I could. Now you don't. Now you didn't.
Or Ayakashi, either way works.
Yeah, now you didn't roast Undead Unluck. That was all facts, fam.
Ah, nice. Okay, thanks, Hayes. Appreciate that. Because I do know that the fan base really likes to look into their own series and predict things and make theories up and ideas of what can happen. And I think this series has the potential to do that. But I think what stops it from going a lot in that direction, the way series like Dr. Stone and even Black Clover can, and even My Hero to an extent, is the fact that those series do a lot more proper build up and setup, while this series kind of likes to do more off the wall roller coaster stuff because it wants to be more of an action flick than anything else, which is fine. It's what it wants to be, but it's also one of those things where I feel like the series could be a lot more than what it is. And I mean, I'm not sure if necessarily that's the reason that the sales haven't been like super great. I don't know, again, if you're following like the rankings of Undead Unluck, Luke, but it's like Yozakura like surpassed like both this series and what was the other one? Ayakashi. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
And so, and that's pretty good, but that also means like for Yozakura, but that also means that Undead Unluck isn't doing super hot.
Yeah, that is kind of a bit of a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been not doing all that great. I mean, I'm not worried about Ayakashi. It's getting an anime, and that anime is going to boost its numbers like crazy. And Yozakura has been great, and also probably going to get an anime soonish. This series, I don't know. Like, it's like, I don't think it's necessarily going to get axed, but it's also not been, like, if there was ever like one series that it's like, okay, what's one 100 plus series you're a little worried about, it would probably be this one. But usually anything that's past 100 chapters, I'm usually not that worried about.
Yeah.
But
So,
okay, it doesn't look like anyone had any suggestions, so we want to do Witch Watch?
yeah. Also, Blazing Boy. Oh boy, you were in for a treat with the Ayakashi anime if that's not uncensored.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we could do Witch Watch.
Yep. This is the Witch Watch anniversary chapter as well.
Yeah. Which also looking at the before we actually get into it quickly, let me just bring up the actual cover page for Shonen Jump this week.
Yeah, just a very simple but cute cover page for Witch Watch.
Which, by the way, teasing us with Nemu. She's not even in this chapter.
Yeah, poor Nemu. But at least that we know that the author does care about Nemu.
Yeah, get her in the house. Get her in the house.
Okay, so let's talk about Witch Watch then.
Yeah. So anyway,
start with this one.
Yeah, so starts off with recap of the last chapter where we had somebody sending an anonymous message that magic would be used to commit a crime at the festival, and they're all like, "Oh my, who is it? Oh, is it okay? We've got to protect everything from the shuttle, make sure that nothing goes wrong, and pilots clashing in the background as the festival begins, as we get the color page this week, which I've got to admit I did actually like this color page a lot, kind of like a medieval style going for it.
Yeah, it looks like those classic Dragon Ball kind of things. I do like Shinohara's like art style when he likes to like waver between things. Oh wait, you're talking about the actual color page. Sorry.
Yeah, the actual color page.
Bad. I was talking about like the first page, which I also like. But yes, this one is honestly one of my favorites. I think I love like the outfits that everyone's wearing. Because like Moi has like a tiger robe on him. You know, of course, Nico has a witch outfit, but even Khan has like a Tengu thing, which I think that's a Tengu.
Yeah, thing. And Wolf, because he's not Kone at the moment. He's Wolf.
Yep. He's not Keigo right now. He just has like a furry outfit, I guess. But then Miharu is just Miharu.
Yeah, Miharu, like everyone else is just in different outfits. Miharu's like, yeah, I don't need a different outfit.
Yeah, but it looks like they're in a cabin in the woods or something.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's the fact that you'd said cabin in the woods. Oh, Has the other been watching the Joss Whedon Cabin in the Woods film recently?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but
also as well, just going off on a tangent quickly here. Shout out to Shinohara Sensei for doing that little sketch of Senku as a congratulations to Boichi and Inagaki.
Yeah, I just sent you that on Discord. I assume that's what you're
Yeah,
coming to.
yeah,
Yep. And he sent like a whole like funny video about it too. It was hilarious.
yeah. So anyway, we get we get the final rehearsals for the opening ceremony, which is taking place at 20 to 9 in the morning, and they're like, okay, cat facing through the wall, floating bunnies, make bigger moves. Let's see you do this. We don't have much time here. And they're like, oh, this is incredible. It's going to be a smash hit. But we have someone in a dog mask floating around everywhere, thinking like, uh, um, sort of like being like a bit suspicious at this point. Before we see like these really sinister eyes, and they're like, Nico, Wakasuki, who cares about stupid magic, stupid cheer? Hey, it's not cheating if it's accepted.
Yep. Which I mean, yeah, that's kind of how that works. But I guess obviously this person is very upset with Nico.
Yeah, I guess it's because they say, it's like people only care about those with talent. Well, yeah, technically, but again, what do you actually have that Nico doesn't have?
Yeah, but I mean that's like a whole other thing when we can probably talk about it at the end of the chapter when we
Yeah,
reveal who this guy is. Because then we see Moy talking with Nico, saying like, "Oh, cool, you finishing up for the opening ceremony?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just got done casting spells." And then apparently they only last like an hour, so he has to refresh them or something. So he kind of just checks in with Nico and then just leaves her to her stuff. That's basically what happens here. And basically, like while she's doing all that, and Nico is like giving all these floating magic to all these people in masks. Moy, on the meantime, is going over his plan with the other boys who are like guarding him because they're guarding him
which
for
by the way, I just want to say, all these people with the masks and they didn't make a Beastars reference.
Oh yeah, that would have been interesting. And Hayes, yeah, thanks for stopping by, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, and I'll have timestamps for you to skip to whatever thing you want. So no
Yeah.
worries there.
All right, no worries. So yeah,
So then we have the boys gathering around and making up a plan. Basically, they're just kind of distributed different places of the schools while Khan is also getting the crows involved because I guess that's his new thing. He can just deal with crows. And then like a random dude with the bear mask comes up to Nico saying, "It's like, hey, I need you to enchant me." And he's like, "Wait, I already enchanted the bear." It's like, well, that must have been somebody else because I was locked in the bathroom. And then that was our signal to be like, okay, that's the guy who's after Nico. One of the people pretended to be an actor and got enchanted by her. And then we see the next page with Wolf coming in to like a bear, and he's phasing through the walls. This phasing ability we saw in the last chapter.
yeah.
Let's see. He
And then
said, "I already know your doctor's." Yep. Thanks, Hayes. Yep.
okay.
Look forward to it. So then, yeah, basically he's fading through the walls, and then of course the bear is already surprised they're onto him, and I'm just like, why are you surprised? Like literally, you sent a note, so why wouldn't people be on high alert? Very confused what their plan was with that.
Yeah. But then we have them saying, "Oh, he's gone east, Miru," and he's like, "Yeah, I can perfectly well, Wolf. Don't shout." As we see him get out his Reaper and slash at the bear's shirt, which basically makes him shirtless, and he's like, "Oh, run into crowds like that, and everyone will be shrieking that you're a perv." Before he's like, "Hi, you really think you've got the bear off me?" And he sinks into the floor, and and uh, and I love Mo sorry, Moe's line of like, "Oh, this has turned into a three-dimensional game of tag." Yeah, it pretty much has.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty cool use of the power. That because it's again, I like when Witch Watch does it, establishes a spell and then we find a way to deal with it based on the rules of it afterwards. This is kind of like what the series is best at. So I'm glad to see it come back again. And
Mhm.
then so literally they split up and Moy comes up with the plan where if we're each stationed on a floor, then you can't escape us. And so then when they got him cornered, Moy's like, take off that mask, Cujo. And then Cujo's like, wait, what? What are you doing? And who is that guy? Because he's standing right behind him. And then Moy's like, wait a minute. I thought you were the guy who's ruining everything for us. And he's just like, I was just cutting class, man. That's a perfectly normal thing to do, I guess, at school. And he's just not sure what's going on. And then
Yeah,
we see the masked dude literally run through the wall of the fourth floor building.
and t- and basically jump jump out of the building's wall into the pool, and didn't realize like, oh crap, I can pass through the floor of a pool and starts drowning.
And I
But
think
before,
this was a really cool thing here
yeah,
because we learned that, holding your breath makes you go to the ground, which then take that to the next extreme. We're in a place where you can't help but hold your breath. You're kind of doomed.
yeah,
It's a good setup. I do like the setup here.
yeah. Excuse me. But then before he can completely drown, Moe saves him, and it's like, all right, who are you? And it turns out it's the production committee guy, Hajime, and the festival goes off without a hitch. So all was well, everything was worked out, and then we have the explanation of like he did all this just because his plan for opening the ceremony got canned in favor of Nico's magic, which okay, that does make sense why he would do that.
Yeah, and if you remember from last chapter, this was the guy who was on the student council, or not student council, but on the planning committee. And they said his plan was too boring for the opening, so they got a Nico instead. Apparently, that was the whole thing that they tried to set up. But I have to say, I did think Cujo was a little too obvious of a red herring for this one. I don't know if the author did the best job of setting that up, but yeah, it's fine. I think for a
Yeah,
very quick 2 chapter short story, it works. And then they tell us that the president went easy on him, but they're saying it's like, oh man, but he's just a good guy. That's why he. Again, to be fair, I guess Cujo or not Cujo, Hajime didn't really do anything bad, so I guess they really can't get too mad at him.
no, they really can't. Um, and Moe says magic is a prime example of exclusive talent, but those who have it carry responsibilities and suffer in ways others don't. Nico has accepted that as her lot. I do what I can to protect her, which I like that. That's the explanation because those people are like, oh, this girl's special. Why is she getting all the praise? They don't really tend to think like maybe she's carrying too much of a burden that I don't really understand.
Yeah, and it's like a very. It's not like the newest concept ever, but I'm glad they brought it up here because it's like a new angle to Nico. We get to kind of explore. And then also, I like how they bring up the fact right after that Nico's still growing as a witch, just protecting her from the world isn't enough. And we aren't her bodyguards. Transition to the final pages. We're her watch. We have the big
Witch
title drop.
Watch. Uh,
Chapter 52, her familiars.
yeah, they really could have gone like all out with that James Bond reference. We are a watch. Witch Watch.
Oh man, that actually would have been funny. But I am glad that they got the title drop moment for the anniversary chapter. It seems appropriate to do that. But
Yeah,
as a whole, well, this wasn't like as big a thing as I thought it was going to be because they resolved the whole problem in a whole 1 chapter, and the motivations were extremely bare bones. It was, I think, still a decent chapter for the anniversary, where it's like it's a setup and then a resolution, just to kind of show like all the bodyguards of her watch working together. And in addition, we get like a little bit of that whole like how Nico's magic can be used incorrectly, but also solved around.
yeah,
I think it was still like a decent chapter for the anniversary. And we also it got a color page, so I think we can say Witch Watch is in a very safe place right now.
yeah. Well, Witch Watch has been in quite a safe place for a while.
Yeah, but I think when I see, because not every chapter series, of course, even gets to their first anniversary, but the fact that this one did and it got a color page, I think that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much that's pretty much all I had to say on it.
Yeah, it was a pretty good chapter. I don't think the people at Shonen and Chill, I remember watching their review, they didn't really dig this one that much. I think just because it was a pretty quick resolution, but
Yeah,
it's fine. I don't think they've just been enjoying Witch Watch as much these last couple chapters.
yeah. So I guess now we can talk about My Hero if you want.
Sure. Actually, no. Let's do Ayakashi first, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
All right. Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, the reason I say that is just because I'll have a lot more to say about my hero than
Okay.
Ayakashi is.
Yeah. So starts off with someone who kind of resembles Suzu, looking up at Shigagane in his true form in a flashback, um, and he's like, everyone is saying Shikigami doesn't really exist. They say there's no scientific proof, and he's like, oh, let them talk. Humans forget about Akashi. Even you, the only child in the village who can hear my voice, in time you will too. And she's like, that's not true. I know that I won't forget you, even when I grow up, not ever. And it turns out that this is a dream from Shigaraki. Um, before we see him looking at everyone in a tree, and he's like, "Oh, a dam was built, and that village is now underwater. I wonder how that girl is doing." Now, you see, with this, when we get into the end of the chapter, this kind of confuses me about it because of what was established earlier on in the series, and and we'll get into it when we get into the end of the chapter. But for now, we have Rio, Suzu, and Matsukaze uh, entering the PE storage closet, and he's like, "I sense some shamelessness coming, and I don't blame you, Shigurane."
Yep. Because considering how this things tend to go in this series.
Yeah, yeah, especially with Rio and her tentacles.
Yeah. Especially when Rio's involved. That's why we like Rio.
Sorry.
No, it's good, man. So then we go a little bit forward, and then we see that what Rio was actually trying to do was trying to use a new type of incense to undo the seal. It's kind of just showing us that she's still working on it, trying to like get the seal off, but it didn't work. Which not surprising. Like if it just randomly worked, that would have just undid like a lot of the series.
Yeah, and Matsui is actually glad nothing did happen because of what happened last time with her personality getting a bit bigger.
Yep. Which I'll be honest, I'm glad they reminded us of because I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah. Um, and Susa's like, and if possible, I'd like to be the one to turn Matsuri back into a guy. Someday with my Ayakashi medium powers, I really will. Yeah, of course you will. But you know probably what will have to happen. They'll have to marry first as women.
Well, we'll see. I think that's what you think will happen, but I'm not sure if it'll happen or not.
Yeah, of course. But I would be perfectly happy with him like just becoming a girl permanently.
I mean, yeah, you mentioned that before, and I have mixed feelings on it just because the series itself established that he still feels like a guy on the inside, and he is still like a male by self-identification. But at the same time, if he can, it would be interesting if the series ended with, okay, I can accept that I have a female body while still being mentally male. It could be a very unique way to end the story,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that'll actually happen that way.
We'll see. But then we have Shirogane basically getting depressed for some reason, and starting to disappear. And Susan's like, "What's going on with you? You're losing your shape and you're being awfully negative." And he's like, "An incompetent Ayakashi like me doesn't deserve to live." And it turns out that it's actually a side effect of what Ryu's actually using. Before she says, "I came up with this blend to erase Shiragani's jutsu, but it's affecting him instead."
Yeah, which I mean, it does make sense. Basically, her thing was kind of like an anti Shirogane thing to get rid of the seal. So of course, it would affect Shirogane negatively. So it does kind
Yeah,
of check out. And then it's also interesting that they kind of bring up the fact that Aikashis are themselves based on belief, and if right now Shirogane is going through, like, we need to stop himself from going through a crisis of confidence, because it'll erase, if you can't believe in yourself as an Ayakashi, it'll be like self-destruction, which is kind of an interesting concept for the
yeah.
world.
And of course, if he disappears, Matsuri will never change back then.
Yeah, that also is true.
Yeah.
That's a
Um.
good point.
So then we have Rio trying to work out what to do with the situation, and she's like, "Oh, hand me the jump rope," but the machine only recognizes it as like, "Okay, I'm gonna tie you up with this jump rope."
No, but I think that's actually what Rio wanted, considering what happened in the next page. So I think she was actually aiming to do this.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I didn't get that at first either, but then when I realized what she was trying to do, then I'm like, okay, that's what she wanted to use the jump rope for. Because otherwise, what was she going to do with the jump rope? It's a jump rope.
All right. Okay. Okay.
And then kind of. Then Suzu takes the jump rope and he's like, I'm going to use it the way a jump rope is supposed to be used. I was very confused what she was doing here, but then she has like this extremely suggestive pose after she's done jump roping.
Yeah.
I
Which
love
again,
Suzu.
the censorship in this series like makes zero sense.
Yeah, to be fair, this scene I don't think is too bad for etchy standards anyway.
Yeah, and and of course she's like, "Oh, Matsuri, you're too wide," and they're like, "I didn't do anything."
Yep, and then immediately he's like, "Wait, no, I wasn't supposed to say that." And then Shirgani's like, "Man, I'm suck. I can't even give scoldings anymore." He runs away.
Yeah, and then we have oh, what was his name?
Oh yeah, I forgot the teacher's name.
The
I don't want to bring up.
the Ayakashi teacher
Yeah,
asking, "Oh, the kitty's in danger," and Susan's like, "Yeah, can you help us out?" He's like, "Okay," and then we have Matsuri going up to Ninokuru and asking him for help, and he's like, "Oh, fine. Guess I'm obligated to." Uh, uh, no, oh no, he doesn't say that. He says he's originally an Ayakashi that was after the Ayakashi medium, and we're not obligated to help. And then he's like, "Oh," and then Matsui's like, "Oh, if he were to disappear, Susu would be so sad, and so would I because he's already one of us." And then that's what gets Ninokuru like, "Okay, fine, yeah, fine, I'll do it, but you're such a hassle." And then we
yep.
have them all
But I
looking
also do
around.
like how people pointed out that it's like, okay, when they talked about Suzu, he was just like didn't care all that much. But then as soon as Matsu's like, but I would also be sad, that's when Ninokuru is like, all right, fine, I'm doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
Soga's adorable.
So then we have them all looking around. We have Rio's grandmother. I, Rio, you're doing a Matsuri thing here. Just, she's your grandmother. Just say that. You're
Well,
not.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you're in like, she has kind of a position of authority here and she wants to respect that. I mean, I've had like, I mean, well, no, that doesn't really count. Okay, but I think I kind of get that one. She just wants to address her as like her role in the school.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And then
And
we're
plus, she has like a whole respect thing going on. So
okay. All right. And then we have Yayu and Lucy looking around, and of course Lucy thinks it's aliens because of course she does. And then we have Rio saying, "Oh, I was careless. even though I asked you to do me a favor to transfer here, I failed as his partner. And then and then this is where the grandma was like, "Oh, I can hear a voice. It's faint, but it brings back memories. Everything backfired. I could defeat the Geo, and humans see my powers, and my jujitsu swap genders even helped a couple get together, and then it turns out that the grandmother knows about Shiragani's existence, and it turns out that she was the little girl in the Ayakashi flashback. See, this is confusing to me because the grandmother was established that she could not see Ayakashis.
Did she say that?
Yes, she did when Rio transferred.
Well, I didn't remember that. I'll take your word for it, though. So that is weird.
Yeah, I'll find the panel. Let me find the panel quickly.
Yeah, if you can do that, that'd be great. I'll just keep going
Okay.
from here. Yeah, basically, she's tries to like talk up Shirogane, and then Shirogane recognizes that the girl from his past, but also, man, this was a really cool picture of Shirogane on page 16. It's been a while since we've seen him like that, and since this chapter. So I'm glad we get to see some of his old form, because I think that as much as I like Shirogane as a comedy relief, it is kind of sad that he had like a much bigger role early on in the story. So these moments are appreciated, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah,
And then they kind of keep going, and then Matsuri's like, "We, I don't want to give up, but we have to prepare for the worst." And then he says, "We'll never forget. In this era, there was an Evers scolding straight man cat that wouldn't excuse any shamelessness." It's basically as if he had passed away from them. And then he's like, "Don't go killing me off just yet," and literally like butts up against her, literally. And then, of course, Shirogane, he's like, "I'm not just a straight man cat. I am the king of Ayakashi, and then I'm going to return to my throne or something." And honestly, this line a little confused me a little bit because I thought that Suzu was the king right now, but unless she's like, "I'm going to become king and take Suzu's place at some point," I didn't know that was a thing that was going to happen, but apparently that's what he's planning on doing.
yeah,
And then we get to the very last page where Suzu gives him a big hug because like they're the ones who really spend most of the time together off screen. And then of course everyone else is still looking for Shirogane because they don't know yet. And Shadow May is very confused because she was not part of this chapter.
yeah. For some reason,
Oh man, this is funny. I do like this cast of characters. They are silly and fun, and I'm glad we get to spend some time doing this because, like I said, a lot of other series don't spend enough time with their cast. So I like moments like these. It was a very, as some people said in the comments, Manga Plus, a very wholesome chapter for an ecchi series.
yeah, I agree. I really agree with that. I'm still trying to find that panel. Let
That's
me.
fine. I can, I guess, keep stalling for time. So I guess what's next for this series is we're probably going to get some more chapters with Shadow May, because considering Shadow May was not here at
Yeah,
all for
yeah, I
this
found it. I
chapter.
found it. So
Okay, cool.
I'll send you the.
Yeah, you can do
Oh,
that.
oh, she says I don't have the ability to see Ayakashis, so I guess you can hear them but can't see them.
Oh, yeah, that could explain it.
Yeah,
Wait,
there's the
actually, let me
panel.
check the beginning of this chapter for a second. Yeah, even you who can hear my voice. Yeah, she can
Okay,
only hear them. Okay, well,
okay.
we'll go with that. Which, I mean, that's fine. I can accept that. I mean, I was okay with it just because, she was Rio's grandma, so I just figured she could. But then, yeah, I guess she can't see it, but she can hear, which, I mean, it still works.
Yeah.
So that was, anything more with Ayakashi? I was basically saying Shadow May chapter is probably what's next. But then again,
Uh,
music could be anything.
no, I didn't have anything else to say really.
All right. So my hero, Yozakura, and we'll save Dr. Stone for the end. Do you want to do my hero or Yozakura next?
Do my hero.
Okay.
So Yeah, we have continuing on for the last chapter. We have Best Genius wondering where Deku was gone, and Bakugo's like, "How if I know he was dragged somewhere else?" And everyone's just like, "Oh, this is really bad. We've got to let everyone know." And Miko's like, "Oh, whatever. This party is already starting to get started, so let's rumble. We've just got to go toe to toe with history's deadliest forever." And yeah, words like that. Like I said, Miko, you're not long for this world.
That's gonna be a whole thing. We should probably talk about that, but like, it's weird because here at Horikoshi's been having like a whole streak of killing off all his strong female heroes. So, because we had, well, Lady Nagant's not dead, but she's way out of commission. Stars and Stripes gone, and Midnight's gone. And like if Miriko's next, like what do you have left? Like Mount Lady,
Well,
and I guess the Tigers.
I guess you have the oh, what was the one of the big three?
One of the big three.
The female big three person.
Wait, I thought that was Miriko. Oh no, you mean the from the students? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
her. Yeah, I was just talking about like the pro heroes, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
I guess she's there. I'm blanking on her name too right now because she was not that important a character. But yeah, like basically most of the pro heroes are like female pro heroes are dying off. So if
Okay.
another one bites the dust, that'd be something. But you know, other people have told me it's probably not likely considering they just brought her back. But who knows? Who really
Wait,
knows?
they've just brought back Miko.
Yeah, because she I mean, because she was like beaten up in the last war fight, and then she got her prosthesis back, and now she's showing up in the story again.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing. If they actually look at the chapter and what was said, it looks as though that she's gonna die in the next chapter.
Mm, I mean, it looks like it, but I don't know if they'd kill her off like that quickly. Also, because she's a much more popular character. That's the other thing. But we'll see. Horikoshi probably doesn't care either way about that.
Yeah. So then
So
we
then Shigaraki's just taking a look at his surroundings. He's realized he's floating in the sky, and he's all by himself here. And he also, interestingly, has like a moment where he's like, "It doesn't matter," and hey, don't take over my head this time, me. So he's having that big identity crisis. Is getting even worse for him
oh
because
yeah,
it was in his head.
but again, it's debatable of like who is really speaking here. Is it Shigaraki or All for One?
Yeah, considering some of the lines later, I think it's Shigaraki, but you are right. It is very hard to tell at this point in this character's story. But anyway, he immediately
Oh, hello. I think we lost him. Pie Jams, I think we lost you. Oh, you're back.
okay. Okay, it's so weird when I drop off because you say it's like, "Hey, where'd you go?" And then I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm still hearing you. I heard you that entire time."
Yeah,
So
because I heard like a beep, and then you went muted for a second. Then
I don't know why I'm still hearing you. Then it's so weird.
oh,
I know it's on my end though, but it's weird. Okay, but anyway, sorry about that, guys. That happens in our streams at least once.
yeah,
Um, I really don't know. I've tried different ways to work around it, but whatever. Anyway, Shigaraki, he uses his. Oh, yeah, I wanted to point out that on Eagle's stream from Project Manga, someone pointed out on page 3 that you can see Shigaraki's fingers growing back on one of his hands,
oh yeah,
which is very nice detail. But he uses his quirk on the ground to destroy everything, but then immediately, like as soon as his quirk activated, like the floor just ejected him upward, and he's very confused, obviously. And then they mentioned that, and then he hits the ceiling where an electromagnetic barrier like shocked him, and then like he said, his muscles are locking up, and that's like the moment that Best Genius grabs him. So basically, what we're the point of the electromagnetic barrier they bring up is that as long as your muscles and brains are operating, electric current will cause them to stiffen up, and then even a superhuman will be helpless for even a brief moment. I do kind of like that. I do kind of like
Yeah,
how they are exploiting like the fact that he's still human as a way to take him down.
yeah, and it makes sense as well.
Yeah, it really does. I think that's what I really like with the chapter. Like everything, like they kind of try to logically explain what's going on.
Yeah,
And so, because like Shigaraki points out that it's like the segment of the ground went up. That's a mechanism to stop my decay from spreading. And then he says, like, ha, that's a poor strategy because the ground is a resource and you guys are getting rid of it completely. And then immediately Justinus points out that it's like, nope, we're already repairing the ground with a particular resource. It's like, what's the matter, Shigaraki? Is your brain short circuited from the shock?
yeah,
It was a fun insult. Vestinus has a lot of clever lines here.
yeah. And it turns out that the arena was constructed basically to defeat him.
A coffin in the sky. Such a cool turn of phrase.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is where we learn that the support team and Cementos are working together to fill the gaps. And the way they're getting all the material is from my girl Momo here. She's, or Creati as her hero name is, she's literally making stuff for them to use to build the arena. And also in the background, Just King pointed this out on his review, but the back there is we see a chef, one of the heroes that are like responsible for food for UA.
Yeah.
He's just making food for Momo so she can keep her energy levels up to continue to make.
Which, again, speaking of Momo, Creati, that's not a very creative name.
No, but it's been her hero name for a while.
Yeah.
I think that was like, I don't know. I think that was one of those things where Horikoshi was like doing that thing where Japanese people like to use English words in creative ways to try to make it sound cool. But to English speakers, it comes off as really awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Undead Unluck did the same thing. I don't hold it against them. It's just a cultural difference. But anyway, then Best Genus points out, it's like, okay, so we came up with this plan based on the battle data from your last couple fights. And that's how we developed this arena because Hatsune, I believe her name is, she said like, okay, let's make a flying fortress, and basically came up with the plan. And they kind of just go into like all the people that are needed to make the plan. And then they said, but in order to do all this, we're going to need a whole lot of energy and for the electromagnetic barrier as well. And that's when we find Kaminaris. Also the comic guy. Apparently his name was Manga.
What is Manga's power?
He can, like, you have to go back to the Class A versus B war for the specifics, but I believe he is basically like an onomatopoeia guy. He can make words like in manga that make sounds into real things. Like in the fight, he just made like a whole wall out of the word like cement or wall or block or something.
Okay.
And you know, and as Just King pointed out in his review, that's pretty overpowered ability. Like literally just making like he's like producing this much energy based on like the word like I don't know shock or voom.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I don't recognize those older classmates though.
Yeah, I don't either. Anyway, I'm just gonna go and quickly get another drink. Be back in a second.
Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm gonna read Carl Singh's comment. Hey, Carl, glad you're here. And first, let me say I'm sorry for not being able to respond to the last chapter and Vigilantes chapter last week. I don't know what you mean. We don't really talk about Vigilantes here. Luke doesn't read it, but yeah, Vigilantes has been pretty good. I'm enjoying the like huge final fight. Last chapter was like one thing leads to another. I'm assuming you're talking about MHA. And yeah, I enjoyed the last chapter because it was a huge setup for the fight we're having. And as I told Luke last chapter, this is the fight with Shigaraki was the one that I was looking most forward to, and we're doing that this chapter. So I'm excited to see that. Anyway, I'm not sure what you're apologizing for, but no reason to apologize. Anyway, so then the upperclassmen, who I don't recognize at all, apparently are saying, hey, kids, first years, focus up. And they're like, hey, we're practically second years at this point. And that is a good point. They are practically second years at this point. Because we really don't get to see the rest of their school career anyhow. And then they point out like without their electricity, the whole plant falls apart. So they're just going at it, and they just kind of. So I'm glad that what we're seeing in this chapter, because what I like about this chapter and give props to Horikoshi for, is this battle with Shigaraki is like one of the biggest things in the series, of course. He's like the big bad in this final battle. So spending a whole chapter establishing the battlefield that they custom made for him, and how the various supporting heroes and classmates that we've known are playing a part in the mechanisms has been really awesome. I love this idea. So I'm glad we're getting it. Because Horikoshi doesn't usually spend enough time with his side characters, but this chapter we're definitely getting a lot of that.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm back as well.
Nice. And Carl Singh also said vigilantes, Kuchisha finally getting the respect he deserves, but they still butchered his hero name. Oh, yeah. Like I said, we don't talk about vigilantes here, but yeah, vigilantes has been
Wait, what happened in
amazing.
Vigilantes?
Okay, so I don't know if you remember from any of the other times I've talked about vigilantes, but basically right now, like in vigilantes, like what's going on in the story is like the big hero. We're having like the big fight between the main character Koichi and the main antagonist. And what just happened is that this entire time, Koichi is like, okay, I'm just gonna hold off this guy until like the big pro heroes show up. Which honestly, Koichi's so OP at this point. He probably, if he had the proper training, he could take it down. But that's a different story. But the pro heroes finally showed up after all this time. And my big comment for the last chapter was that, man, these guys are so slow. I'm starting to understand why in a world full of superheroes, so much crime is still committed. Because it took you this long to get to the big giant monster that's destroying the city.
Wow.
And then this week's chapter, again, Carl saying this week's chapter was pretty impressive. I wonder how the villains managed to get the drop on Deku. Is it due to his confidence not being fully restored, or do they play so many situations over on the danger sense? That is a good question. I do wonder how the danger sense wasn't going off. Luke mentioned that maybe it's because Toga isn't a danger to Deku. Like what she's doing was an attack, and therefore the danger sense didn't go off, which is one possibility. Another thing is that they found some way around it. But at the same time, I don't know how much of this was like AFO's like counter plan and how much of this was Toga, but I think we'll find out once we get into Toga's fight. And then another theory could be that All for One did something with the Vestiges last time. Nishiragi managed to reach the realm. That is also an interesting theory. I hadn't considered that, because you would think that he would have done something, which is definitely possible, as we saw with Stars and Stripes using her ability to mess with AFO's quirks. So
Yeah.
definitely plausible. And also, we have another bot again, Luke.
Oh my god. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, continuing the chapter, we're on page 11. Just
Okay.
for reference. Okay. So, yeah. And then the next page, I like this next line where it's like, not for honor, not for glory. No, those of us making work do it to ensure that the world will see tomorrow. And I think to myself, you know what? If Hero Society was based off these principles, we wouldn't be having this whole who's the number one hero, this big competition, this ostracization. A lot of Hero Society's problems, if we just based everything off this philosophy, would have been so much better. But then I think that might have been the point of My Hero Academia. It was that Hero Society needs to get to the point where they need to realize what it really means to have heroics. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that that was the point Horikoshi was getting across. And if so, it was a very well done story to get to there.
Oh.
And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, moving swiftly on, we have them all coming towards Shigaraki, and he's like, "Oh, so proud of your toys, but not for long." But he's like, and he tries to break the scenery around him to protect him, but Bakugo's like, joke's on you. Or did you forget that crappy game of ours back in Jakku?
Yep, and then we get my guy Monoma back. I think you were pausing to give me that moment.
Yeah, I was leaving that moment. But also, I want to say, like, a character that I didn't expect to see back, the water hero that either
Yeah, I believe his
her
name was
dad,
Manuel, if I remember
Manuel.
correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad he's back too and doing basically the same thing he did during the war arc. So I love the setup for this because, of course, we knew that Monoma was heading back to Aizawa. And so there was the prediction, oh, is he going to use the erasure quirk? And yes, he was. He was using it right here. And he's like, of course, still like uh, insulting Shigaraki here because he knows how much he hates erasure. And Carl Singh mentioned Shigaraki. I couldn't tell if he was fully conscious and confronting Aizawa, or is it AFO controlling some parts of him through his consciousness? That's a good question. We were actually bringing that up in the beginning, or Luke was bringing it up in the beginning, Carl saying, because we still don't really know who's fully in control right now. But based on like the very last lines of this chapter, I feel like Shiraki is at least partially there. But it's very hard to tell where his character is at this point in his development. Um, but yeah, anyway, Aizawa, he says, this effectively locks us in place, but as long as we're making continuous contact, Motiva can circumvent the 5-minute level for copied abilities. I think that's actually a pretty good point because I forgot that Aizawa had like a time limit on his thing. So it actually kind of makes sense to bring Monoma here. In fact, I don't remember if in the war arc this was a problem, if we got to the point where we had like a 5-minute time limit or something. But if it did, this was a good way to get around that.
yeah. I
Development
think
from
it.
the work.
I can't remember if that was actually established, but I think it was. It might have been or something like that.
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry, I misread that. That was my fault. Okay,
Oh,
Monoma is the one with the time limit because he has all these clocks around him usually, and that's like he
okay,
uses to keep track of how long he can use a copied quirk. But as I was saying, as long as he's in contact with Monoma, he can keep using his quirk. So yep, my bad. That was my
okay, okay.
misread that.
So
But
yeah, we
then
have
the big surprise comes in next page.
the big surprise where we see Shigaraki bring a wave of what appears to be his hands, and um, Miko's like, "Dynamite, got any intel what the hell that is?" And he's like, "Oh, don't know, I've never seen it before." Um, and then Iso was like, Shigaraki's body was still imperfect back in Jakku, and we see the hands make contact with Miko, as it looks like, from what I can see, her foot is getting destroyed right away.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that properly. But yeah, like it looks like her legs just got chopped off.
Yeah. So yeah, this might actually be the end for Miko.
Let me just see. Oh yeah, now that I'm looking at it more closely, we can see her hands. I think her hands may have gotten disrupted. Not like her right one, but her left one maybe.
Because you can see like her left one's not touching anything, but her right one is, and like that's completely disintegrating.
Yep. So, mm, yeah, and then of course the big question is how did Shigaraki exactly do this? Like, Just King brought up the idea that maybe this is like some ability that's just a natural part of his new body. It's not like a quirk, which might be an explanation. I was thinking maybe this might be some kind of heteromorph ability because we know not Shigaraki, Aizawa's erasure doesn't work on heteromorph abilities. That was established way back when.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know why Shigaraki can do this, but next chapter we'll probably learn why. But also we'll learn if Miko's okay. Because she does not look okay. No more I look at it.
Nope. And
But
it does seem like they brought her back just to kill her off.
which, wow, that would be something if that happened. And then Shigaraki's like, I used to think you were so cool. You turned to be quite a letdown to raise your head. Which, I mean, someone else on Twitter pointed out where he said that. So that's why I think Shigaraki is still in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That is Shigaraki's thoughts.
So, big question. Is Miko dead?
Yeah, then the other question is, are we going to follow this fight next time? They could just leave us on this cliffhanger and go do another fight. They could just do Dabi versus Todoroki or the Toga fighter, wherever Spinner is.
So,
AFO.
Carl Singh, do you think Miko's dead here?
Yep. you're talking about MHA, you might have some thoughts there. I don't know. I don't want to say he should be killed off this easily. I feel like she'd have a more heroic way to go out, so to speak. But I don't know. It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
But
But
that was My Hero Academia. I really enjoyed this chapter. I think dedicating a chapter to just establishing the battlefield is good. And also, I think someone else pointed out that there's no way these guys are going to beat Shigaraki because that's what Deku
no,
has to do. So like basically, this is not going to end well for them. This
yeah,
whole elaborate system is going to fall, and I think Horikoshi was just setting it up so you're going to watch Shigaraki slowly break it down before Deku shows up.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Because I feel like what's
So
going to happen is the electromagnetic barrier is going to drop, and that'll allow Deku to come in. But then at that point, of course, that would mean that everyone's basically down for the count.
oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, that was My Hero Academia. Really fun chapter. I'm looking forward to find out more next chapter. But for now, Mission Your Sakura Family.
Yep. I'm just writing down the time. Shinyo Zakura Family, Chapter 120. Was quite a chapter.
This was like whether Koichiro is dead or not chapter.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so I mean, to begin with, they just kind of talk about his strings. I don't think we really need to elaborate too much on that. It's basically just saying the strings are very tiny and thin, and
Yeah,
they can expand space, and then he can just use it as blades or whatever that are impossible to escape. And then the next page, page 2, honestly, it might be one of my favorite panels like of the
yeah.
series, just
I
because
saw I
it's
saw
so.
you I saw you posting about that.
Yep. Oh, and Carl Singh said, I love how Kaminari and Manga, whom also forgotten, are helping out. Yep. I also like all the side characters are involved for sure. And then back to Yozakura. Yeah, this was like a really cool panel. And I was wondering, because like they said, on the first page, oh, no one can escape. And then they show how awesome the attack is. I was just waiting for like all the heads to somehow get out of it, even though we're watching them get sliced up. But because they're like, we literally see the second head smiling as the attack is happening.
Yeah,
It says grin. So then with that, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Then we cut to the other family members driving up to the area because they've been tracking where Koichiro has been going.
yeah. Also, I've just got to say, I love that Goliath is piloting alongside Mutsumi.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even notice that. Also, another thing I did notice is on the third page, the paneling is actually kind of like accentuates the cutting of the thread too.
Oh yeah, that was a nice touch.
Yeah, the author goes hard this chapter. The mangaka, I should say. Anyway, continuing onwards, so they come up with a plan, and basically the plan is okay. So we found where they are with the computer I built because they've been slowly building up a computer with these last couple of chapters, and then they found exactly where Koichiro is, and so then Mutsumi and Goliath are going to stay, of course, on the helicopter and keep that on air, and everyone else jumps on in, and then we see Shinzo. He uses his hammer to break us down to where Koichiro is underground, and then we watch everyone fall to the ground,
Yeah,
and Koichiro has this blank expression.
yeah. I love that on page 8. How you just don't see his expression, you just see like this visage of just blackness.
Yep, and it's just terrifying because you don't know what that means. Carl Singal says, glad that Aizo's power is being used properly with Mona much maximized to its upper limit. So it's Shiraki. I do hope Murako survives this. Yep. Well, all right. We'll see. We'll definitely see what happens next chapter. And yeah, I'm also glad Aizo and Monam are involved because those are like two of my favorite characters of the series right there, working together. Anyway, so then Koichiro's like blank expression is got scared, especially when Tayo's like Koichiro, as in he sees something we don't. But then, like the next page, we literally see him standing perfectly unharmed while all the heads are just destroyed. And I was just so taken aback.
Yeah, I was as well. And I was like, no, there has to be more going on here.
There's no way he just like one soloed every head. Like it's like almost as if the series was saying, it's like, yeah, this whole time I was too busy protecting Mutsumi to go full on offense or something. I don't even know, because this was crazy. Just looking at them all just destroyed.
Yeah.
But even the family's just shocked, because then they land, and then they're going. Taiwan's they're all defeated, and then thankfully Shion confirms in a few seconds all of them will fade away because the Somin levels are dropping rapidly. And then Koichiro, and then Taiyo goes, "Wait, Koichiro was really this powerful?" And then Taiyo tries to reach out to him, and then immediately Koichiro like creates like a barrier around them
Yeah.
for some reason, slightly harming Taiyo's fingers. And he says, "Stay away." And then let's see, Futaba mentions like, "Hang on, I don't blame you for getting carried away this time, but what did you just do to your own sibling just now?" And then he's like, "There's nothing to talk about, and we'll probably won't ever meet again either." And we're watching him and the other heads just slowly disintegrate into flowers, similar to the way Momo does, which this is what really like confuses me as he says, "I'm sorry." I'm like, hang on, are you like dying or are you getting teleported?
I think,
And if
like, here's the thing. I think he's dying, but that he'll get revived on Subumi's side.
that's what a lot of other people said, and I'll be honest, that's such a cool way to go with this character. But at the same time, does this mean the heads are defeated?
I don't think they are defeated. I think if they can get back to Subumi, she can use her what's it called again? Monen to actually power them back up.
Yeah, because it would be too anticlimactic for them to just be gone. It would remind me of like one of my least favorite moments in Demon Slayer is when we see Muzan just eliminate the lower six, and I'm just like, why did you just? I know you said they're just too weak for you compared to the upper six, but like, why? What was the point of taking out these extremely strong and loyal warriors? They could still be of use to you. I don't understand why he did that. And if basically that just felt like stupidly anticlimactic just to show off Muzan's cruelty and strength. And I think if we just had all the heads die here, that would just be a weird moment just to show off. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just so powerful. You can take on all the heads. And now we're going to take on Koichiro himself. I'm just like, okay, one of those sounds really cool. Then the others sounds like a waste of time because they gave designs to all these heads, and obviously they gave personalities, probably paralleling the siblings. So it would be a waste if they just died. But I don't know. I really don't, because I'm not sure if this is Fabum, if this is Momo interfering, or if it's or what was her name again? The big bad
Subumi.
Sabumi. Thank you, Sabumi interfering, and but we everyone's just like left in disbelief after this, as well as me, because I'm still not entirely sure what happened.
Yeah, and I guess my only guess is that if this was taken out, if this is like taking out the heads, then he probably sacrificed, like he probably did what what was he called? The head of the Hunter Association.
Oh yeah,
Netero, that was it.
yes,
Like he basically used the strings sort of like his life energy or something like that.
he used a bomb. He used a
Yeah,
bomb. Yeah, but at the same time, the thing that's in Shonen, self-destruct attacks almost never worked. Like, think about that one. Like, Merriman still survived, and then in Dragon Ball Z, we saw Chaozu try to self-destruct Nappa to death. It didn't work.
well
And then
technically,
Vegeta tried to do it with Majin Buu. Didn't work.
with the one in Hunter x Hunter, Meruem did die in the end.
Okay, that is actually a good point. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. But it's still, most of the time, self-destruct attacks don't end up working. So I don't know. The weird thing is, I still feel like Yozakura is still in a safe place. So I don't think this is the series saying, okay, we're in like Axe territory, so we need to get rid of all the heads and just set up the final battle. I genuinely think they're doing something interesting, but we just don't know what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Because on the other hand, if I'm wrong and this is just the series saying, okay, we're going to abruptly end ourselves, that would be depressing.
That would be depressing considering I'm about to start talking about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because now that Dr. Stone is done, Luke is going to start doing reviews for Mission Yozakura Family on his channel. And I was just thinking after this chapter, it's like, wait, how close are they trying to say we're in Endgame? Because we just had Luke switcher this series.
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to
Then,
me.
I mean, what are you going to do, man? Like, Witch Watch or something?
I'd probably do Witch Watch.
I mean, it was after, because you can't really do Ayakashi,
No.
considering, Ayakashi.
Oh, I'd probably do. I'd probably do Akane.
I mean, you could do that one too. I honestly, my suggestion would be for you, on the off chance this happens, would be maybe consider doing a couple series, just in case this kind of thing happens. But for now, I think Yozakura is honestly fine. I'm just kind of doom and glooming this, mostly because as the next series we're going to talk about ended a little sooner than I was expecting. So I'm kind of in this weird state of mind where I'm afraid of series ending like soon.
So I guess I feel that Koricho isn't done. Like, there's going to be something done. But here's the thing: they say, well, he says we'll probably never ever meet again either.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, if he gets taken over, it might not be him, him talking. So it's it's a kind of like a, with most zombie stories, it's like, that's not me anymore. That's just like my corpse, so to speak,
Yeah. Yeah. And plus as well, the fact that he's getting transported away, and isn't Momo technically a corpse?
I don't know, because I don't know if he's dead or not.
Oh, okay.
Although that would explain a lot. But at the same time, we still need to learn a lot about Momo and what he's gonna do, because he like pieced out of this fight. He didn't want to fight his son for whatever reason. So maybe he'll show up and explain. That would be nice.
That would be nice. That would be nice. But yeah, this can't be the end of the series, because for one reason, Tayo is not even a gold rank yet.
Yeah, also true. So, my God, there's like I said, I'm just kind of putting the worst case scenario in our heads just to kind of find ways to get rid of it. But it's such a strange ending, and I'm very looking forward to what happens next, because I think they're gonna, because Shion mentioned that the Samin levels are dropping, so they're probably gonna have trouble finding them again. So I think what they're going to do next is they might go look for their dad. I think they're gonna go find Momo and be like, "Hey, where did our brother go? Explain."
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to happen next, as a guess. Or we're going to look at things, or if Koichiro is not dead, then we're going to go to where he and probably Sabumi is, or Momo, and then we're going to follow the story from their perspective next chapter. That's the other possibility.
Probably. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but anything else with Yozakura?
Not really. I mean, it was a short chapter, despite it. I guess the reason why it was short is just because of the double spreads.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think this is fine for a short chapter, because it still had the impact that the author probably wanted to get across. Of course, this is also like the week where we had everyone comment on the end of Dr. Stone, so we can't really gauge anything from any author comments this week.
No.
Because either someone mentioned something about Dr. Stone, or they just were talking about random stuff. Like Oda, I thought he would at least say something, because he knows Boichi's such a big Dr. Stone fan. So I thought he would say something, but he didn't say anything. He was just talking about some YouTube channel.
Huh.
Well, like I'm okay with the younger people maybe not knowing much. I think Well, we can actually maybe talk about the comments next
Yeah,
section. Actually,
yeah, we can do. We can do.
yeah,
So
I'll just
yeah,
pull them up
that
while you do
was
it.
Mission Yosako family. And now on to the grand finale. The last time that this will happen. Dr. Stone.
Hmm. You know, we at least had some days to come to terms with this, so I guess that's
Yeah,
one of the good things about
yeah.
delaying the stream.
Now, uh, and yeah, this was the reason why, despite not having my voice back, I really wanted to do the stream because it's the final chapter of Dr. Stone. Like,
Yeah, and I didn't want to push, Luke to do anything while he was recovering from his health. But I was hoping we would get a chance to do this, especially because
yeah,
the next time we are having the dedicated stream for this series.
yeah,
And, it was already enough to try to schedule it once. So,
yeah, yeah. So my question is that
mhm.
is this really the end of Doctor Stone? Because of based on what Inagaki has been saying, like it's not over just yet. It will continue.
Yeah, he did make a mention of that. I think, and I agree with most people, that it's probably just in reference to the chapter we're going to get for the Ryusui OVA.
But then
Um,
that seems like a bit of a for lack of a better word, tease.
I think, but at the same time, I don't think it's wrong because we are still getting a little bit more Dr. Stone.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
I mean,
But
the thing is, the other thing is, he had a whole live stream with his wife this morning. I guess
oh,
talking about the series.
that's who
But
that person was.
oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But it was all in Japanese, so I didn't understand a thing he said. But I understood just a few names. They were mentioning them. I would have stuck around if they were like subtitles or something to understand. But I am just trying not to, get my hopes up that Inagaki was teasing sequel series coming up or even an extended epilogue because I would take even that honestly. But because like I'm just going to assume it's what's already been confirmed. Just because if I get my hopes up too high, because I've seen some people say based on the way this chapter ended, we could get like a sequel. But at the same time, I feel like the way this chapter ended is almost as if to say, write your own sequel if you'd like.
yeah, I guess. I've just
But
sent a message to Sky. Sky said to say, "Hey, we're talking about the final chapter now." Um, but yeah, Boichi's comment is really fascinating. Of the fact that he'd like to do a new project in Jump, so it's good that he had a good working relationship with not just the Inagaki but Jump itself.
yeah, and speaking of, I know we're going to talk about comments a little bit later, but I just want to point out that Boichi in his comment, he said, of course, he was happy to have the 5 years of Dr. Stone and live on in his heart, but he also says he would like to do a new project in Jump. So Jump, get Boichi back in the magazine as soon as you can. He's one of
Yeah,
the best artists you guys
because
have ever
if
had.
if you do that Jump, I will be reviewing that. That'll be a series I will be reviewing, no matter what.
That'll be like the big series I think we'll be really hyping up because he was the Dr. Stone artist. So I think that by alone will get him in. And I wonder what it would be about because he really likes writing sci-fi stuff, but I know he does
I
write
think
other stuff as well.
I think it would be a sci-fi. I think it would probably be something similar to Doctor Stone, but taken in a completely different direction.
I think it'll be very like if Dr. Stone is like hard sci-fi, then I think his next series will be like really, I guess, light sci-fi. I don't know what the word is, soft sci-fi.
Yeah.
Because it'll be a lot more craziness, which I wouldn't be fine with because like the only others like Earthchild is tackling some sci-fi concepts, but I don't really like the way they're doing it.
Hmm.
And but yeah, anyway, we should actually probably talk about the chapter.
Yeah,
Kind of
definitely.
avoiding it.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of giving it all the time it deserves. So we start the chapter with a lovely color page of the team returning to Earth and other color pages of Senku as they arrive back on Earth. in the same manner as when Byakuya's group landed on Treasure Island, only this time Senku and everyone has a team to pick them up with the Perseus. Before we see many characters, including Magma, um, Mantle. So there's Mantle, Yo, and Nikki, all celebrating like, yeah, the Y Man's been defeated. As we see a scientist giving everyone medals, and I love the fact that we get different reactions. So Senku's just his humble self. Ryuzu's like, yeah, I decided this medal. I decided this medal. Stanley's the more professional one, and Kawaku's just asleep.
Yep, I see a lot of funny art. One art is like point out the one where Stanley is just carrying Kohaku off the stage and give her to Rory because he's like, your sister fell asleep.
Yeah.
You take her home. And I love the color page like of this medal ceremony, but also who is that scientist? He's just like this one random dude.
I think it's
like one of those things in this.
I think it's the scientist that was with Sino in the flashback.
You mean like when they were NASA?
Yeah.
Oh,
let
maybe.
Let me go back to that flashback quickly.
Okay, go for it. In the meantime, the medal itself had like an E equals MC squared with like the world around it. Just like a nice touch, of course, with the Kingdom of Science flag that Yuzuria designed. So, and then we see like a little revival fluid on the side. I guess just their way of saying it's like, yep. And then they just went around and revived all the people across the globe.
Which I've just realised something. Looking back on the series, did they go to the indigenous tribes, like the ones that are just away from everyone? sorry. Like,
I mean,
have you ever heard of North Sentinel Island?
no, I haven't.
No, that's basically an island off the coast of India, which is basically just like separate from all life in the out world. They do their own thing. They're a very like tribal people.
Yeah, but I think they would still go there if they knew a civilization was there. So I think it just presumed that somebody went around where all the people were. I mean, realistically, there would probably be some statues somewhere for somebody who just cut themselves off completely. But, realistically, just about everybody's awake, I think is what they're trying to say. And then we get Senku giving high fives to Taiju, Yuzuria, Kaseki, then Tsukasa. I'm not sure why this order specifically. But then what I find interesting is after the Kohaku's page, I didn't see too many people talking about this. We have Luna Kirasame and like a random girl. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not a character we actually know. I'm pretty sure it's actually just a random girl. And I'm like, okay, hang on a second. We have 7 color pages, but you dedicate one of the characters Senku is interacting with, like a random person we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So weird. Anyway, and then this transitions.
No, what's also weird is the actual color page itself. Like, okay, Ryusui, Suika, Gen, Senku, Chrome, Sino. Okay, I get why they're on the color page, but Hyoga and Magma?
I mean, I guess they were antagonists, like big antagonists for their particular arcs. So that's probably why they're there.
But then why isn't Stanley there?
Yeah, Stanley was already here for the ceremony and the early stuff, so it's not like he didn't get depicted,
It just seems strange, like Magma and Hyoga.
Like Kohaku isn't like here for that, even though she's a major character, because we just saw her. And then, and also, in my opinion, I feel like Stanley is also played kind of like as part of Xeno's as the bigger antagonist. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
Okay, fair enough.
And also, I want to point on this color page, Suika's hair is green. You notice that?
Yeah, that's strange.
Yeah, she gets her hair green and she's wearing a green cape. And I'm like, wait, what? I get the watermelon thing, but I feel like you went too
I guess she's
overboard,
trying to model herself after Senku.
which is kind of cute. I like that. But so yeah, that's Suika, and then yep, we get the Medusa as well, just hanging on Senku's hip.
Yeah,
That's where its new home is. It's very cute. And also, I think I don't think I've mentioned this before, but as other people pointed out, the Medusa, like in the capsule, is very reminiscent of Boichi's
yeah,
avatar.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
I'm pretty sure that's on purpose. Also, the Senku stone axe is there too, with the one he brought to the moon.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we get on to the chapter itself.
Which is several years later. So I
Oh
want
yeah,
to
and the
say
chapter
this
is
is
called Doctor Stone, but I'm just gonna point that out.
yeah,
Not
that makes sense for it to be called Dr. Stone. Um, so yeah, several years later, I would say this is probably about 5 years later.
well, to be fair, we're just kind of making that up. We have no idea.
Yeah, which, by the way, as the trivia on the Dr. Stone wiki pointed out, Chalk and Sagare, they're probably dead at this point.
Yeah, which we don't see him, so I think I'll take that as confirmation of it. Sad, but it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, we have Gen, basically a diplomat in um, I assume this is Corn City in America.
Yeah, because the flag is out there.
Yeah, yeah. So he's being a diplomat to everyone, probably telling them about, probably telling them like, yeah. So there was these things on the moon that just went into space, and they're just going like, okay,
I mean, they saw that on TV, I think, unless they're newly revived. But what's interesting here is when you look at the city, you, you can look at the outer edges of it. There's like a fenced out area as well as a road that continues. So I think that's still a nice way to show us these aren't like, fully modernized cities. These are still like newly established cities
yeah,
with modern tech. It's just like a nice touch in the details.
yeah.
But there's a road that stretches off. So this we're still like very much far into civilization, especially with the plane that again is riding a huge plane.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And of course, we have another unknown person that we don't know of. I mean, we can tell two of them are Francos and Suika, but there's one other
Francois.
person,
But
Francois, Fran, and Suika, but there's one other person that we don't know the identity
some
of.
people have suggested that's actually Max.
Um, no, because I think Max should be
Shorter?
shorter. He should be like Suika's height.
Maybe. That's a good point. But yeah, I don't know who that is. But at the same time, what I find interesting on this first page is the fact that we see in America the Kingdom of Science flag nearby. And then when
Yeah,
we get back to Japan, we see the Kingdom of Science flag near Japan's flag. And so Shonen and I were talking about that actually on his community page. He thinks that this is a sign that the King Ishigami Village and slash the Kingdom of Science, they got a sort of sovereignty after the Y-Man incident, and they're kind of their own established nation in a sense. Um, but I have this one theory that, and at this point, anything goes considering the series has ended. I think that one possibility is the fact that since the Kingdom of Science has effectively went around established cities as well as the world's currency system, and we'll talk probably more about this with our big stream. I think they might be a similar to like the UN acting as a sort of world government, kind of keeping order and things running while the other nations are reestablishing themselves. So I wonder if rather than just being like their own country by itself, they kind of are like the world government, so to speak. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm
that would
trying to
make
hear your thoughts.
sense. That would make a lot of sense. Although, um, that just raises questions about what conflicts are going to come later on.
I mean, very likely, but I think in the next page we kind of get into that a little bit because again, switches back to his old costume, and he's gone accustomed to it after all those 10 years of
Yeah,
wearing the silly outfit.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. Plus, it really looks good on him. Uh, but he mentions that he's been not in Japan for a long while, probably years, honestly. And then
Yep.
he said he's a mentalist by trade, not a diplomat. And then Francois mentions bringing together nations of the New World requires explanation and negotiation. Your skills are indispensable, Master Gen. And then what I want to say with this is I kind of, if I had some negatives to say about this chapter, and well, at least the series as a whole, is I kind of wish we saw more of this happening in real time rather than just as a throwaway line over here. Because like the establishment of new countries and like the diplomacy necessary for it, I thought that would be like a whole thing for the Doctor
Yeah.
Stone series. But instead, it's just Gen flying around, talking to countries, and then being like, okay, cool, we're with this. And I'm like, all right, then. I guess that's just Gen being such a good mentalist.
You want to know? You want to know something? You want to know something?
What's up?
Donald Trump would have been hard to get on their side.
Yeah, he would be, and I don't think the British government would be too much easier, honestly.
No, because for anime people who watch this, Donald Trump was in the first chapter.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think I saw online that someone mentioned Inagaki, because this was happening. He drew Dr. Stone back in 2017. Dr. Stone came in 2017, and the U.S. elections are in every 4 years in 2016. So we didn't know until November of that year who was the president. So he thought Clinton was going to win. So he originally drew Clinton as the president of that chapter. Then, of course, I think they just redrew the chapter before it came out. But I saw some rough drafts. I don't know if they're real or not. But that's kind of a fun detail.
Yeah. Because the petrification itself happened in 2019.
Yep. Which means that whoever was the sitting president of that election would be the president at the time.
Yeah.
Provided nothing went wrong between those years. But anyway, Gen brings up, what you brought up before, Luke, about like what conflicts are going to happen between countries. That's the thing. We'll never really know. And that's too bad, because that was like a whole thing we thought would happen, like a whole final war to kind of deal with that. But, we're just saying Gen is smoothing everything over.
Yeah. Screw Luna. Screw Senku. Go and be with Gen.
Wait, what?
Like, because she says, because you've just mentioned Gen smoothing it over, and Luna's like the smoothest capable girl. Go and be
Luna.
with Gen.
Got it. I thought you said Lula or something. I bet. Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. But then I think we learned this chapter she has a type with scientists specifically.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Gen says, okay, fair enough. My skills are needed to establish world peace, I guess. But I came home for this. Dear Taiju and Yuzuriha's wedding.
Yeah, which he finally did it. He finally did it.
Oh my God, I'm so happy. Because this is like payoff from chapter 1 when he was going to confess his feelings. And now they're just straight up married.
And also, have you noticed something about Yuzuriha?
Oh, her what's it called? Her headpiece, right?
No, not a headpiece.
Veil. That's the word I was looking for.
No, anyway, not a veil. Not the veil. She grew her hair out again.
Oh yeah, I guess she did. That is a good point. Yeah. And it looks good on her. And I love, and her wedding dress looks great on her in general. Probably made it herself. I love how like her headphones are like part of her veil. It's just too perfect.
I know, but still, I really want to know. Like, I at least wanted something. I at least wanted something to come up when somebody was like, "Yuzuriha, do you ever take that off your head?"
Oh man. But we also get to see her parents, like in the next panel, which another nice touch because she mentioned her parents were alive and well before the petrification. So
it was nice that they got them back, and also we finally got confirmation of something.
That Mirai can age.
Yes.
Yep. Which, I mean, I'm also glad to see that because we were wondering, where is she? And is she older? I mean, at this point, she has to be older. It's been too many years.
Yeah. The only thing now I want to see is Shuffle. Where is Shuffle?
Oh, yeah. I guess she's too minor a character to show up again. And that's another thing we'll probably talk more about this stream, but a lot of the villagers got super side shafted by the series.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm honestly waiting for that stream so that I can say to Shonen OG, like, so where's your waifu at? Because I know Turquoise is his waifu.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, but more on that on our stream coming up. And then again tells us something surprising. This is apparently day 2 of their wedding. And then Yuzuriya says, this way more of our friends could attend. And then Taiju is just happy to keep celebrating his marriage, because of course he is. He's just lovable like that. And then Kohaku mentions that the science team is so busy, Senku made them leave at the end of day 1. And again, it's like, yeah, that's reasonable. These things only supposed to last one day.
Yeah,
And having
yeah,
been to weddings, yeah, they're a whole ordeal. I don't know how these guys are not exhausted from 2 days of straight wedding
yeah.
celebrations.
But also what I love about this chapter as well is that we get Stanley doing what he did best and actually teaching Yo how to use a
Yeah,
gun properly.
yeah, that was a really nice touch. I like that we got that moment. I also like that we see Mozu again, as and then like the 2 island girls, Kirasame and Amaryllis.
Yeah,
They were just being super unimpressed by him at this point.
yeah.
And then Chelsea, with her like one thing is she brings some rocks to the wedding, because of course she does. That's just her thing.
And
I did
then
like to touch though that sorry, look, I just want to bring up this one point,
yeah,
that the amber, I think the rock that he's polishing, Sozu, I think this is a callback to when the Islanders were polishing those ores that accidentally triggered the Y-Man call way back 3,000 years ago, because that we saw a Treasure Islander do that. So I think it's just a nice touch that the Islanders are really good at polishing ores.
yeah, I like that as well. I really like that. But we get into probably the funniest point of the chapter is when we have Koku saying like, "Oh, now is the perfect time. He cannot screw this up." So, um, Ruri, what's going to happen with you and Chrome? And then we have Luna Lysia's like, "Hey, it's time for the smoothest operator to listen in." Um, but it's not like I'm trying to bag myself a scientist, obviously. And then Ruri's like, "Oh, Chrome already asked me to marry him."
Yep. And well, a couple things I want to say with this. First of all, I'm glad that we got this happening. Two, Ruri looks really beautiful in her dress. And three, I like how, like Chrome says, specifically, when our bad science project is all wrapped up, let's get married. So it's specifically after their project is done. And I do want to bring that up near the end when we talk
Yeah,
about the big project. But I also don't understand, though, in this particular panel, like why like Kohaku's making that expression, and then Luna is like, yeesh, no helpful role models. I'm very confused about, because like Ruri got what she wanted, so maybe she's crying of happiness, but then I don't understand what Kohaku's face is about.
I guess Corker's face is more like, "Oh, why does science always have to come first?"
Oh, yeah, fair enough. That could be it. But it's still kind of, it's in character.
Yeah,
Um, and then
but
Gen says bad. Oh, God.
yeah, no, I was gonna say after that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, then again says bad science project. And Sukasa says, indeed, with every step taken by science, the rules governing our world inevitably change. And then he says, Hyoga, Zeno, and I guess addressing them as like the, major antagonists of the series, minus Ibarra, once bloodied our hands to prevent the rebirth of the old world's hierarchies. But at this point, the idea is such a grim future is a distant memory. And I'm wondering how I feel about this particular line, because I'm not sure if this is his way of saying, okay, I'm glad things turned out the way they did, and that's just, I'm supposed to take that at face value. Or if he's really saying that, the way they're shaping the world as they are, the idea of science being misused seems much less likely. I don't know. What did you think about that particular line?
I think it is that like he's seeing it as like science at this point has changed so much with the idea of the Medusa coming into existence, and now it can be seen as a more positive outlook that war doesn't need to necessarily happen in the way that it used to anymore.
Okay. And the other thing he said is he wanted to prevent the rebirth of the old hierarchies. It does make me think that's the other thing I really want to establish. It's like the new world order, how things are governed, who's in charge. A lot of this stuff I wanted the series to kind of talk about a little bit more, but I guess we're not going to get that. But I guess this is the story's way of saying it's like all those older powers aren't in power anymore, I guess. So that's good. And then Hyoga brings up a good point that's saying, regardless, once law and order is established in the new world, we will likely find ourselves judged and condemned. Bringing back the line, Senku says, okay, we'll worry about the court systems after we save the world. And then Hyoga saying, like, yeah, eventually that's going to happen, which I guess after all these years hasn't happened quite yet.
Yeah. But Yukio actually brings up of the fact that it depends on the science team's success, and it's entirely possible that before he's cut off, as Taiju is like, oh come on, the science team is supposed to them book. Let's at least bring some cake for them, and they go to see what they think is Senku before we turn around, and it sees a female Senku. Like nobody questions this.
Yep. I feel like this should be questioned a bit more for sure. Because, like, I'm pretty sure this is just a gag. Everyone's like, oh, is this Senku's mom? Or I like the one headcanon where this is just someone who looked up to Senku so much they designed their look after him. But,
I would say that it is a relative of Senku, but it's not a common relative. Like, it's more like a distant cousin.
Again, though, like you said, if that was the case, I would attribute it. Like, I think people should react more to it. At this point, I'm just going with the fact that I like the headcanon of someone designed themselves after Senku.
Okay, fair enough.
More funnier for me personally, but that's what's fun about this ending. You can headcanon all you want.
Which, by the way,
I just want to say on page 13, where we see the city where the wedding is taking place, it actually is like the Kingdom of Science area, and like all the stuff they built is still around them, which is nice because it's again a way of saying like the world is going back to normal, but it's still the new world that we established. Well, we got to see more of it, but still.
Yeah. Now, I was just gonna say that. Okay, Senku, you finally got a proper waifu.
I mean, the other thing I was thinking when we saw this is I was wondering if this is Inagaki's way, because like I wanted like a female scientist villain, or at least a female intellectual villain to come up, and it's like, well, this is the best you're gonna get. I'm like, fine, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But apparently, nations from countries from all over the world have been sending scientists to study the petrification device, which makes sense. And then we get into my favorite part, and if you don't mind, Luke, I'm just gonna talk about this for a little bit.
Go ahead.
So basically, I'm just going to sum up to say this is where we get into the actual mechanisms of the petrification device itself, which honestly, I thought they were just going to straight up skip over because we already met the Y-Man. But thankfully, we didn't. And I really like this explanation. I'm going to need to reread the series because there might be some holes in it. But as a whole, it's actually really good. So the way the Medusa works is we know that Senku was talking about the fact that it can float and defy gravity. And the way it was doing that is by manipulating the Higgs field. Now, for those who don't know about the Higgs boson, it was once called the God particle. And it's basically a particle that we have confirmed to exist that affects the mass of objects. It's basically the reason that like mass and gravity are a thing. The Higgs boson is what allows that to happen. And the Medusa itself can float and fly by making mass or weight zero. And the way petrification works, as they describe, petrification is a phenomenon where the organic molecules gain increased resistance via the Higgs field. Effectively, petrification is the process of the Higgs field altering the mass of the organism it targets, which I think is a really cool explanation. I mean, the actual stone part is still a little bit weird, but I can imagine that the state of matter can be affected if we're altering things at the level of the Higgs field. Now, this is like pretty dense, so I'm going to ask Luke if you had any questions about this you wanted me to clarify.
No, no questions.
Okay, I just really liked this explanation, but at the same time, I did think this was very weird between this and the invention they show at the end to just reveal at the last chapter, because Dr. Stone, what it does really well is it takes like science topics and then makes it really easy for people to understand and learn. But this is like a really advanced quantum physics topic. Well, not even advanced, honestly, but this is a quantum physics topic that they took and just kind of threw out there and just really kind of tried to give this whole explanation of, oh, think of water pressure in a pool. And I'm like, okay, sure, I guess that kind of makes sense. But I don't know if for most people this would have made sense. Like, what did you think about this explanation?
I thought it was pretty well handled, and yeah, maybe it would be a bit confusing for other people, but I really had no problem with it.
Okay. As I was wondering if this was a little much, but I personally really like it as someone who knows what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
but no, it's basic science. Like they mentioned, like altering the water pressure in said pool. So like, if you actually bob yourself down under a pool or underwater, you start floating anyway.
I mean, sure, if you want to think of it that way. Because I'm still not a huge fan of the metaphor myself, but if it works for you, awesome. And I will also make a note of, wait, what was it? I was losing my train of thought. Okay, well, one, again, points out the fact that, yes, Senku's lectures were much easier than all these quantum physics topics. Two, right above all this Higgs fields, we see the asterisks with science consultant Carrare. So if you're unsure about how much of this is science, because I remember watching the Shonen Chill podcast and this sounded like they were just, it sounded like they were a little more distrustful of the science that's happening in this chapter. But they did talk to a consultant, and as someone who also studied physics, I can say that most of this checks out pretty well. Most of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a little sad just because I'm pretty sure some people, of course, would take this away as more science fiction-y stuff. But we found the Higgs boson years ago. So it's a real thing.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I think we can move on from this because I forgot what else I was going to say here.
So we have Gen sort of debating, sort of like thinking that this is the Medusa that was broken down that they brought back from the moon, and they're like, "Oh no, this is just one of the many broken ones." So I'm glad that they brought up the pyramid in South America.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and then we have my favorite part of the chapter where Senku and his team are working on their special project, and they're guessing what it could all mean. And I love Gen steals.
Well, before we get there, I just wanted to mention that Taiji's like, "Get this, Senku. Today I'm finally marrying to Yuzuriya," and then Yuzuriya's like,
This was my part that I was gonna say.
"Oh,
anyway.
sorry. I thought you were talking about the next part. My bad. Go on."
Well, it's part of that part because it relates to the next part. But I love how Chrome, not Chrome, Gen steals Chrome's catchphrase. But yeah, we have Taiju saying, "Oh, get this, Senku. Today's the big day. I'm fine, man. To Yuzuriya." And Yuzuriya is like, "Yeah, he said the same thing yesterday." As we get pretty much a callback to the first chapter, because if you remember, in the first chapter, Taiju said, "This is it, Senku. After 5 long years, I'm finally gonna do it."
Yep. And then Senku says similar to what he said before. Very interesting. I'm cheering for you so hard from the lab, my vocal cords will snap. And he goes, "Wait a minute, this sounds very familiar."
Yeah, and also as well, if you notice, he's working on the same device that he was working on in the first chapter.
Oh, well, I think it's not this. Oh wait, actually, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
it's at least a similar device.
It's a similar device, but I like to think it's the exact same device.
Fair enough. Because like the device he was using at the time was he was using it to figure out the properties of the stone birds, and it could be that he still needs that to
Yeah,
understand the petrification method. So
yeah. Um, but anyway, they mentioned like, oh, we've bought cake for all of you and the science team, as we see Sai, Sinu, Chrome, and Suika there, and Gen is just like freaking out of like, oh, is this the bad science project? And they're like,
well,
oh,
before we move on, I just want
yeah,
to say I was wrong about something. Kaseki is alive and well and with the team. I honestly thought he would be passed away by our last chapter and it would be a big thing, but I was wrong. And I'm glad I was wrong.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah. Um, so then we have them like, oh, sure is, we've made something incredible, and Joel's there, Joel and Kasaki side by side together. That is just amazing. Um, and we have
Yep, and Suika is there too. She's
yes,
acknowledged as a full scientist because at this point she's like an adult, like a well
yes, she
adult.
is a well adult. Um, and then we have the Y Man Medusa saying, returning to the past to prevent incursions upon your Earth will avert numerous steps of my kind. And then we get the big reveal of what the project is. It was a time machine, which,
And it looks like a giant Medusa.
yeah, which makes sense. That makes sense. That Seika would create a time machine of Medusa. Now, this is probably what Inagaki mentioned when, because he mentioned that Seika would eventually have to create something, would eventually get to the point where he'd create something that's not been invented yet. And this is probably what he meant.
Yeah, and in that sense, it makes a lot of sense. So, what did you think about the time machine reveal yourself?
I thought it was like, yeah, that's the most logical step to go off here. Like the last chapter of Doctor Stone, it has to be something completely out of this world. So it could have only been two things: interstellar travel or a time machine.
Hmm. And yeah, I agree that it had to be something big. I was a little skeptical about the time machine at first, but after having time to digest it, having read the raws and then reading the officials and taking time to read what everyone's saying, I'm ultimately happy that we ended up with this. But I do think it's honestly like a very it's, it's kind of strange, controversial choice in the sense that time travel in itself in storytelling brings a lot of issues, confusion, and story complications that I'm surprised they brought it up. But at the same time, since it's like the beginnings of a time machine at the very end of a story, I think it's still fine.
Yeah, it's
But
still
it
fine.
did confuse a lot of people. When I was
It's
reading, a lot of people were like very confused and
yeah,
concerned.
it's still fine because of the fact that we're not going to see how it works. So I feel like Inagaki can get away with it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Some people wanted more with that, but I honestly think that makes sense to end with this because if we go any further, we would need to like establish like how time travel works in the Doctor Stone world, which itself brings up a good amount of concerns and issues. And then we would have to figure out, okay, well, now that how do we avoid time paradoxes and if you read any like if you've seen Doctor Who, time travel
Yeah,
can get very
I
wibbly.
know. I have watched so much Doctor Who, so like I am aware of that. Like with Doctor Who, the whole canon of Doctor Who is pretty much like the Medusa itself, snooker loopy.
Yep. Which honestly, now that you said that, it just works too well that the Medusa's design eventually led to a time machine, a continuous time loop. So
Yeah.
nice.
Now
But yeah, Gen is shocked and so is Ukyo. Yeah, go
now
ahead.
here's what I think. What I think is going to happen eventually. We have them saying 21st century logic told us it couldn't be done, but maybe, just maybe, on our ground goal can be realized, like by shooting the Petra beam into the past to petrify the victors before they meet their fate. Maybe we could save them, all 7 billion members of humanity. Now, here's what I think is going to happen because we see just the astronauts, we see all of those astronauts. So I feel like what might happen is that Senku might go back in time to just save those ones. So, like, they'll still die in the story as it is, but they'll be able to come into the future.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at too. The thing is, if you think about it too much, it gets a little confusing because we saw the astronauts. Because like here's one thing I thought about is two of those astronauts, the husband and wife team,
Yeah,
the Russians, they just disappeared and never came back. So story wise, we can say, oh, Senku went back and saved them. That's why we never saw him come back.
yeah, and
Um,
also as well, I did see that, like that panel you said. Did Senku travel through time?
Oh yeah, because last chapter I said the Y Man thing with the skull and that being him reading Senku's X-ray and trying to model him after a skeleton was probably the last bit of foreshadowing. But no, the last bit of foreshadowing was that Senku
Yeah,
traveling back in time. Which I mean, like I've seen some people when the Ross came up, people were saying it's like, man, there was no build up to this, and I'm like, what are you talking about? They literally explained the Higgs boson stuff, which connects with all the Medusa's mechanisms, and now then they give us a whole diagram of how the time machine works, and they gave a little line way back when Senku traveling through time. So
yeah,
I really do think that like a lot of this was just planned from the beginning. And the other thing I think the reason this makes sense is because Senku said he wants to save all the humanity, but I'm like, that's not realistically possible to save some of these people. But I thought maybe at some point we would get an arc where Senku would come to terms with that. And, some people said that would probably be a better way to go about it. And I kind of agree. But sticking with the shonen ideals, a time machine would be able to realize that. Because with the time machine, they can save everybody. Um, and yeah, the other thing, what I was going to say is with the astronauts, is some of them we saw like them die and get buried. So I'm not sure if that means okay, well we're gonna have to like dig them out and then petrify and bring them back or something because that would work because we do know with Hyoga we can just bring back like recently deceased corpses.
yeah. I feel like that would be the best bet to go about it.
Yeah, and so in a way, it really does make sense. And I think another thing is, this is the series way of saying they didn't fully reject the idea of immortality. They just didn't want it the way that the Y Man wanted it, or the way other people may have wanted it.
Yeah,
This is they're going to use it not to overextend their lives, but so much as just save the people that just died prematurely, which I think is like a good middle ground for this series.
yeah, yeah. And then we get
We
one of
also
the
see
pan.
Hyoga and Tsukasa like pictured because if this works, they don't have to like be condemned because technically, if we save those people Hyoga like poisoned before they died, he didn't actually kill anybody.
Yeah, yeah. So we get Gen looking shocked about this, almost crying. A perfect metaphor for people reacting to this chapter being the end. As we get Sinu saying, "Oh, perhaps instead we must about transmitting data into the past to grant an AI survivor a truly elegant no." As we see Ray, so I guess Ray is canon now.
Yeah, here's what's interesting because this is literally, and this gets into time travel mechanics a little bit. So, how I think time travel will work, and my preferred. Okay, so there's two methods of time travel I kind of like. One is the one where you can go back in time or forward in time, which we already kind of can. Uh, but you just can't change anything. It's kind of a predetermined timeline. And so basically the universe will just correct itself. Or the more fun way is parallel timelines, which basically allows the multiverse to exist. And if we're talking alternate timelines, then that is how we can sort of semi-canonize Ray because like the reboot is a separate timeline, but that separate timeline came about because of the time machine that Senku made.
Ugh, I never thought of
So
it
in
like
other
that.
words, that timeline is the one that you can argue that Zeno's idea set into motion. This is because he's like, okay, we'll transmit data into the human AI savior, and that savior was Ray. So basically, he went back in time. I don't know if you watched Attack on Titan, but he basically pulled off an Aaron Yeager, told Byakuya, hey, build a AI machine, and Byakuya's like, well, I don't know where that came from, but okay, I'll build the AIs, if you say so. And then he's going to use Ray, the AI, to save all of humanity, or at least attempt to.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very
So
interesting idea.
in that sense, and I don't want to over glorify this, but it could be a way we could get all these spin-offs because I don't know what the reuse OVA is going to be. Is it going to be a side story? Is it going to be like some backstory to him that we didn't know before? That's what I was thinking. But after this chapter, it could honestly be like, okay, this is just a parallel timeline. It doesn't conflict with anything from our main story, but we can still use it because in the Dr. Stone canon, there's parallel timelines. This could just be one of the timelines Senku set into motion to try to save the world through Ryusui or something.
Yeah, yeah, it really could.
So now I'm really looking forward to that special chapter in the OVA because then we can
Yeah,
theoretically, how
we
did
can.
Senku set this into motion with his time machine?
Yeah. So we get something else that I didn't think we would ever get again. A roadmap.
Yep, a roadmap for the time machine. And like short version, this is kind of what like really justified the time machine to me because they basically just tell us that we are using the Higgs field from the Y-Man and as well as a lot of other machine parts to create a light speed cyclotron motor. So time travel in basics would require us to go faster than the speed of light, and with mass is set to zero, then an object does have the capacity to travel at light speed. So that light speed engine, along with the battery power, which I'm assuming they're getting from uh, potentially the diamond batteries. I mean, they don't really bring them up here. They talk instead about a hyper power source and this generator I never heard of. But I'm just assuming if this is based off the Medusa, they have diamond batteries in there. With the diamond batteries as storage powers, which is incredible amounts of power, as well as a light speed engine uh, and a vacuum tube to like keep all this working. This could theoretically work. This could actually theoretically
Yeah,
work,
theoretically work.
which I love that. I love theoretical science and connecting back to the ray we just talked about. In that, Senku talked about his love of quantum mechanics at the time, which actually, now that more I'm thinking about it, the more I am tying this to this time machine right now. But anyway, Senku mentioned the quantum mechanics and how he learned about that at age 10. And so I'm glad the series actually is finally bringing in some of the quantum mechanics into its final chapter.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
definitely.
stuff that got me into physics to begin with.
Yeah. And then we have Gen just crying his eyes out and saying, I believe you really could, dear Senku, or rather humanity could pull this off. One painstaking step at a time. We could build a time machine over decades, centuries, even if it takes millennia, which is nice callbacks to phrases that have been said in the series. And I love that Suika has a lab coat on.
Yep. She's like a bona fide scientist.
Yeah. And Senku rounds up the chapter and the series by saying, yep, because science pierces across time itself to discover and unearth new rules about the universe. So I'd say, get excited. Perfect phrase to end the series on.
Hmm. And I would like to say for anybody who is not big on the time machine, the way this series ends is very open to interpretation. Apparently, that's how Shield 21, Inagaki's last series, also ended very openly. And in that sense, you could honestly like headcanonize, okay, Senku tried to build a time machine, but then it just didn't work if you're that set against time travel, because that is theoretically also a way the series could have went. But I really enjoyed this ending because with the time machine, we could have all these different parallel timelines, and that also allows fans to kind of pick up where the story left off and kind of just do their own thing. And they all kind of fit because we have a time machine now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And you can just say this is just from one of the timelines that they were created when Senku made a time machine.
Yeah, and also as well, like what Senku says, because science pierces across time itself. That's that might be referencing when Suika was on her own in South America.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That is a good point. I didn't think of that. And I think one other thing is I was kind of hoping that Zeno himself would have had like a position of authority by the end of everything, because I mean he's like my favorite villain of the series, and it would be kind of funny if ultimately he did still get what he wanted, but in a different way.
Yeah,
which he kind of did. But I'd like to think that after this time project. Oh yeah, and that's what I wanted to bring up. Yeah, so apparently this time machine could take decades, centuries, millennia. And then I'm like, wait a minute, but didn't Chrome say after the project is done, that's when he'll marry Ruri? What if it doesn't finish in his lifetime? Are they just never going to get married?
I guess.
Isn't that kind of a sad, funny thought? But yeah, anyway, I'm pretty sure he will marry Ruri, and I'm pretty sure the time machine will either be done or mostly done enough that he can just go and do that. But anyway, I think Zeno, at some point, I would like to think that after he plays his part in the time machine, he also has like some authority because he's basically was in charge of Corn City. And then once Super Alloy City was made, he was in charge of the Super Alloy. So he does have some authority to begin with. And I like to think that he just kind of gets to keep some of that power in the world government. But we'll talk more about that with our big stream.
Yeah, definitely. So,
and I did want to bring up the author comments if we.
Yeah, we can bring up the author comments.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring that up real quick because I just accidentally closed that tab. Okay, there we go. So for this last chapter, a lot of people said some nice things. Shinohara, Witch Watcher's author, said Dr. Stone inspired so many kids. So with the greatest respect, I say congrats or congratulations. And I like that one in particular just because he also sent that picture to him. So you can tell he's a pretty big Dr. Stone fan. And then Inagaki, of course, says exactly 5 years. And yeah, and that kind of tells me he planned it to be exactly 5 years. Everything in this story, I think, is planned out for the most part. And I think that's why, looking at the reception, actually, let me ask you this first, Luke. How do you think people have been receiving this chapter from what you've seen?
I think people have been relatively okay with it.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've seen too, generally positive. I've seen way more positive. And I've seen, of course, a few negatives here and there because there's always going to be a few negatives. But it still seems like the vast minority. So I think that the reason, because comparatively I've seen Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer and even Promised Neverland. And I don't know if you remember those. Well, I'm pretty sure you remember Promised Neverland. There were a lot of people who really didn't like Promised Neverland by the time it was like over.
Yeah.
But with Dr. Stone, there's like so much positivity going on. And I think that's part of the huge reason, even with such a controversial choice like a time machine and quantum physics at the end, is just because the story was so well laid out that it's been so consistently good that people will have to just generally be positive about it by the end of it. And of course, some people just also really like this end as well, too. And so Inagaki thanks people for the support. And like you said, he said it's continuing just a little longer. Since he says it's continuing just a little longer, it makes me think it's that OVA special because it's like a little bit longer. It's not like a whole series he has planned out.
Okay.
But it could, but maybe an epilogue if we're lucky. I don't know. Because just to be like, maybe they don't have to show us like what they do with the time machine, but they can just show like maybe a little bit later them all like older, Taiju and Yuzu with kids. I don't know. Chrome and Ruri with their kids. Something like that. We just want more Dr. Stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Boichi says, Dr. Stone will always continue in my heart, and I would like to do a new project in Jump. So he literally wants to do a new project in Jump. So Jump, you would be fools not to let Boichi just on board, like as soon as you have an opening. Because like, I mean, he gave you a 5-year series with some of like the best stuff. And people are going to be riding high on that with like a new anime. So I think just frankly, once the new anime is out, you can just say, hey, Boichi's coming back with a new series. And then everyone will be like on board with Dr. Stone. And so they'll be on board with the new manga from Boichi. I don't know. I don't see any reason Boichi won't be back like super soon in the future.
Yeah, I don't see
unless
any
he just
reason.
unless he wants a break, unless he's just like, okay, I'm going to take a nap for like a couple months and then come back. But other than that, I don't see any reason he wouldn't just come back. Because even Dr. Stone started very soon after Origin ended. I think it was Origin or Sunken Rock. One of those.
It was
two.
Sunken Rock.
Right. Thanks, Luke. After Sunken Rock like just ended, he came in to play with Dr. Stone. So I feel like Boichi's going to have a quick turnaround, and I feel like it should be in Jump. Because if it's not in Jump, my assumption will be Jump didn't want to do it, and that's just bad form, Jump. That's just bad form. And Undead Unluck, I learned so much from manga. Reading Dr. Stone every week got me excited. let's see, Child didn't have anything to say. And then Oda didn't have anything to say. I was actually surprised with Oda. I thought he would actually say something because I honestly even thought Yamato was designed as like a homage to Senku. I mean, I don't read One Piece, but I thought that's what the design was based off of. Then Yege Jujutsu Kaisen I was overwhelmed by the passion every week, and he gives his congrats. Horikoshi says he was constantly in a state of being excited, and he thanks them. Robico. Okay, with Robicos, I kind of find it funny because they said, thank you so much for an seriously say awesome manga. So they use Gen's Pig Latin. And again,
Yeah.
that's saying that they've read Dr. Stone very closely. But also Robico, I should say Miyazaki, the mangaka. You know, for someone who really likes Dr. Stone, you aren't putting too many Dr. Stone references. I'm just saying if the next Robico chapter is not Dr. Stone based, I'm going to be a little bit upset. Not too upset because you can do what you want, but I'm going to be a little bit upset because they don't really do much Dr. Stone. They just have like I think they have like 3 references in the entire series to Dr. Stone. Anyway, and then Sakamoto Days. This one was interesting because they said, I enjoyed Dr. Stone every week when I was still a student. Thank you so much for all of these years. And that made me think, how young is this guy? He read Dr. Stone when he was still a student. I looked it up. I think he was born not around the same time I was. So I'm not sure if he means like being a grad student or something.
I think he was a grad student then. Also, I've sent you a picture of Yamato.
Oh, cool. I mean, I know what Yamato looks like, but sure. But yeah, so I'm wondering how young Sakamoto Days Suzuki Sensei is. But I'm glad there are people who were inspired by Dr. Stone as students and then got to join Jump. Blue Box's mangaka offers conclusion, and like they said, with such dense art and story, you deserve a wonderful break. And I agree with that, Miro Sensei. And then P6's author had nothing to say. And then Yozakura's family said, I love the chapter with glass and calcite. And I think that's a pretty good choice. Chrome on his own with that one. So that was a good one, gone, Diera Sensei. But also what happened to Koichiro, you don't get an excuse for not explaining that. High School Family's author offers his congratulations for 5 years of an amazing manga. Elusive Samurai's Matsui, who also did Assassination Classroom, he says congratulations, said the skills of veterans who can land their shots, hats off. So I'm guessing he really enjoyed the series up to the very end. Then let's see, Mashl's author didn't say anything, did just talk about a cool fact, but I don't know what they're talking about. Tabitha mentions congrats as well for awesome story and art each week. Yakabuki from Ayakashi Triangle. I agree with his statement, I think, the most. He says, I consider it one of the great shonen manga series.
Yeah.
And I have to agree with him. It is honestly one of the great shonen manga series. So, of course, Yabuki Sensei recognizes top quality series.
Yeah.
And then the rest are the monthly manga, which, of course, when they made their comments, they didn't know Dr. Stone was ending. So maybe they'll say something next time because World Trigger's author gives the congratulations to Magu-chan, which ended recently. And then Seraph of the End mentioned their 10-year anniversary is coming up. So that'll be exciting for me.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any last thoughts, Luke? I was talking a lot this stream because I want to give your voice a rest.
Yeah, and I'm great, and I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for that, mate. I really am. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, and hopefully my voice will be a lot better by the time Sundays rolls around.
Yep, because we're going to need to do a lot of talking, even though me and the guests will, of course, have plenty of stuff to say.
Yeah.
I know you will as well. Ideally, I want to try to get through a whole reread of the series. I don't know if that's realistically possible by now, but I'm going to do my best to try.
Okay, all right. But yeah, that was the stream, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and be back here on Sunday for the big Dr. Stone retrospective stream. So until then, peace.